All right. OBS decided to not have my microphone on, but we're good to go. We have a horrendous situation that happened in BC to go over. We have obviously question period, and I am live hours before question period were to begin. Let me just pull up hours before question. YouTube live. Good to go. Chat up and running. Let me just get going on Rumble and Kick here. And in the meantime, we have the Senate question period from yesterday. So we're going to watch a bit of this, then we'll get into some other things.
Question period. Période de questions. Sénateur Houssakos.
Honorable colleagues, my question is for the government leader in the Senate. Government leader, the numbers do not lie. For the past 3 years, Canada's economy has barely kept its head above water. According to the International Monetary Fund, Canada's real GDP growth has stagnated, reaching an anemic 1.2% last year. This is the legacy of the Liberal government over the last decade. Stagflation, spiraling debt, declining productivity, and a weakening Canadian dollar, and investment fleeing our country, and investment not coming into our country. Given these results, do the Carney Liberals still believe in the failed debt financing strategy of the last 10 years, trying to spend their way to economic growth by indebting the country?
Sénateur Moreau.
You are right, Senator Houssakos. Numbers.
Oh my god, somebody get this guy a glass of water. He sounds like the Crypt Keeper.
Numbers don't lie. The fact are that I will try this again. The fact are that total employment is up by 134,000 over the last year. The government is committed to strengthen our economy, to diversify our economy, and to make sure that Canada will go through tough time the better way possible. And I think that whatever the Prime Minister have been doing over the last 9 months is bringing Canadian economy to a high level by diversifying.
Okay, this guy is tough to listen to. He might be worse than RFK Jr. And that's a run for your money right there, honestly. Okay, I don't think they're going to talk about much in this Senate for or this question period for the Senate. That would happen today because like I said earlier, some horrendous shit has happened. A school shooting in Tumbler Ridge, BC happened yesterday. I believe around 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and BC is roughly 3 hours behind, I think, give or take. I could be wrong on that. Don't live in BC, so I don't know. I think it's 3 hours behind. Absolutely terrible situation. We have Poilievre and Mark Carney. I don't want to listen to Mark Carney, but I'm going to hear both of them because this is a big situation, and it's definitely going to be the most talked about thing in question period today. They're gonna fucking just hammer home gun control. We're probably gonna get a ton of new policies from the Liberals now, really hammering on gun control instead of addressing the actual problem, which would quite obviously be the mental illness that is running rampant in this country. You are not right in the head if you go out of your way and do this, obviously. Like, nobody needs to be a rocket scientist here on this one. The person in question who did this was quite obviously not right in the head. Very sick. Very mentally ill. And, yeah, instead of addressing the mental illness, the rampant mental illness in this country, sadly, gun owners are going to be the target. And we're going to see what happens here.
À l'égard de tous les Canadiens. Thank you very much, everyone. Obviously, we are all devastated by the news of this appalling shooting in Tumbler Ridge. The fact that this took place at a secondary school, it makes it even more tragic. As a father, I can't even imagine the phone calls that parents might have received. I can't imagine the heartache and hell that they're living through at this moment. This is a time for all Canadians to unite, to support the families and the community at large. We'll be in touch with the Prime Minister and the other parties later today to offer all of our support to work together and help the community in any way we can in this terrible time. I encourage all Canadians to pray for the community and pray for the family as we go forward and take the necessary steps to support them. Thank you very much.
All right, so there you have it. There was a bunch in French as well, but
Rend la tragédie encore.
let's be real, nobody knows what the hell he's saying. Even as Canadians, we really don't care too much to speak French. Only Quebec does. Anyway, though, it's a bail fail. Was this person out on bail as well? Because if that's the case, then, like, there you go. It's almost like when you keep criminals behind bars, they wouldn't be able to do these things. You wonder if it is? Yeah, I have no idea. Like I said before, it's just a case of severe mental illness. Nobody in their right mind has these thoughts. Period. And actually committing it and following through with it just further proves the point. This wasn't a mentally stable person. They never are. There is a severe crisis in this country with rampant mental illness, and instead of treating it, we just kind of pander to it, and we give it a pat on the back. So I don't know, man. When more details come out, we'll have to see. But right now, I can already put 2 and 2 together. I'm not going to say it because we don't 100% know, but I have a very strong feeling of who this type of person is.
It's obviously a very difficult day for the nation. This morning, parents, grandparents, sisters, brothers in Tumbler Ridge will wake up without someone they love. The nation mourns with you. Canada stands by you. I want to thank and pass on a number of world leaders who've reached out directly to me in solidarity and compassion. France, United Kingdom, His Majesty himself, Norway, Finland, India, United Arab Emirates, many others. The world is with you. I have spoken to Premier Eby. Minister of Public Safety has been engaged, as have many Canadian officials over the evening. Minister of Public Safety is en route to British Columbia. He and the Premier will be visiting the community. All assistance, obviously, will be offered. We thank the first responders, the teachers, the staff, the residents, for everything that they've done in this terrible situation. On the advice of the Clerk of the Privy Council and Heritage Canada, I've asked that the flags in the Peace Tower here and across all government buildings be flown at half-mast for the next 7 days. We will get through this, we will learn from this, but right now it's a time to come together, as Canadians always do in these situations, these terrible situations, to support each other, to mourn together, and to grow together. Alors, ce matin,
I've got to be completely honest here. I don't care what other countries have to say. I care what our country is going to do about this going forward. and the severity of it. How far will the Liberal Party go now because of this? That's what I'm really wondering. I don't care what the UAE has to say. I don't care what the UK or Mexico has to say about this. I care about what our country is going to do going forward. So, at the end of the day, to sit there and go, well, the whole world is united behind this. Okay, sure, yes, nobody wants innocent people to be slaughtered. I think that's safe to say. Nobody's promoting that. And if you are, you're a horrible person. You're a fucking piece of shit. But like, I don't care what the United Arabs have to say. I don't care. They've already pushed for severe gun control in this country, and this is only going to further it. So,
les alliés à travers le monde, la France, le Royaume-Uni, Sa Majesté, tout le Canada, et la patrie canadienne.
all right, the rest is in French. We got a thing here from Andrew Scheer yesterday talking to reporters.
Good afternoon. So over the course of the next few days, I'll be providing regular updates as to the status of certain pieces of legislation. After 10 years of Liberal government policies, cost of living is out of control. Liberal deficits have led to massive inflation, made our economy more dependent on the United States and weaker than ever before. And after a year of Mark Carney, nothing really has gotten any better. That's why Conservatives have indicated our willingness to put aside partisan differences and work towards a more affordable Canada, a safer Canada, where our communities are not plagued by the out-of-control crime that so many cities across the country are facing. And to that end, we have highlighted areas where, if the Liberals adopt certain compromises, that we would allow key pieces of legislation to proceed. As you may know, with the Budget Implementation Act, the government wrote in that legislation powers for ministers to completely ignore certain laws and regulations. We know what happens when Liberals think no one's looking. They have a long track record of funneling cash to their friendly insiders and their political supporters. That's why we put forward a series of compromises that if the Liberals accept, then we would allow that bill to proceed. Elements that would prevent ministers from being able to completely circumvent the law without any kind of parliamentary oversight or scrutiny. It's in this way that we are respecting what Canadians want. They don't want $500 million costly election. They want to see real solutions that improve the quality of their life, bring down prices, and make their communities more affordable. Alors, pendant les prochains jours, je vais donner les mises à jour sur certaines parties. Le gouvernement a essayé de donner transparence to places of worship and a few questions that I've got to run into question period.
Is there any compromise you can reach on C9? What's the Conservatives' intention for that once committee resumes?
Well, look, we have said to the government that there are elements of that bill in terms of safeguarding access to places of worship and institutions that are connected to various communities and different faith groups. If that enjoys tremendous support and cross-party agreement. If they were solely focused on that, those are elements of that bill that could pass very quickly. They are choosing to keep the committee seized with a very divisive aspect of that. We've made our objections known. It's going to be up to them to see what they do.
Do you want the government to split the bill, reintroduce a new one? Like, what's the?
Well, that's what they had to do with C2. You know, C2, they came to Parliament. Again, a very problematic bill with lots of examples of government overreach and government interfering in people's private lives. We worked with them, insisted that they reintroduce a new bill. They did so. We worked to make sure that passed in a timely manner. If the government chose to take that approach, I can signal that Conservatives would support those components of the bill. That as I said, there's broad-based support amongst Canadians, amongst different faith groups, amongst different parties, that protecting access, people should be able to access those sites, those places of worship, those community centres, free from intimidation and harassment. That's something that we could work with in good faith.
So that block amendment's a bit of a poison pill, though, right now. Even those changes that Sean Fraser said would be on the table to maybe make it more palatable to you guys, as long as that's in there, there's no way you're supporting.
Well, it's very clear. It's very clear what they were doing with that. It's a censorship bill, and we've said we cannot support that provision.
But what you're saying was in the initial bill, and then the Liberals said you guys weren't willing to work with them, hence why they partnered with the Bloc. Like, if you're willing to support if you're willing to support the creating bubble zones around these buildings, why didn't you just support the original bill?
Well, I don't think that's a fair assessment. If you look back and see what we've put on notice in terms of which elements we would like to see taken off, you'll have a very clear understanding of those components that we do support. It was the Liberals that chose to accept an amendment to give the power to the government to censor religious censorship aspects of that bill. That was their choice, and we've been opposed to that since the time they did. Maybe one more, and then I've got it ready for you.
Est-ce qu'il y a sur C9 des négociations en ce moment avec les libéraux?
All right, it's in French. Who cares? We all hate the CBC. I know. But we're going to watch a little bit of it because they're the only channel that is in Canada talking about this. Every other live channel covering this is from India. Why? Like, crazy. They are so involved with Canadian news and politics over there. It's crazy.
Live now to the Peace Tower in Ottawa. Prime Minister Mark Carney has requested its flag and all of the flags on government and the school themselves for hours yesterday afternoon. Meantime, the sun is now up at the scene of the shooting and investigators are on site. There are still so many questions about what happened, who did this and why. We will keep bringing you the very latest details and live updates as they come in right here on CBC News Network. First, a look at the location of Tumbler Ridge. It's a remote mountain town in the Eastern Rockies, close to the Alberta border. It's about an hour's drive from Dawson Creek and home to some 2,400 people. This satellite image shows the location of Tumbler Ridge Secondary School and the local health center almost next door. Earlier today in Ottawa, the Prime Minister had this message for a community that is gripped by grief.
Parents.
Tumbler Ridge, BC.
We already saw that. I'm not playing it again.
With the latest on this story. So, Caroline, it's daylight now. We know investigators are there. What else is happening where you are?
Yeah, Arthi, just behind me, as you can see, police continue to come to the scene. We've seen a number of vehicles pulling in over the last hour or two. One was pulling a trailer, presumably that's containing investigative equipment that police will need to process the scene and figure out exactly what happened. About, I'd say, 20 minutes ago, just here over my shoulder, you could see there is now police tape. That is the Tumbler Ridge Secondary School where the shooting happened, and right behind it, we believe that's right behind it. Not sure what that connects to, possibly the community center, but police have now blocked off that area. We don't know why, but obviously this is part of the investigation. As you know, this all started yesterday with an active shooter alert. Police put out an alert at about 1:20 p.m. local time saying that there was an active shooter seen at this secondary school. They say that officers who work in this community arrived within 2 minutes. Once they got to the scene, they found a gruesome scene. They said 6 people had been found deceased. The shooter, or the suspect, I should say, also found deceased from self-inflicted injuries. They also say that there was about 25 other people who were injured. We don't know the extent of their injuries, but they were not life-threatening. We know 2 people were airlifted to hospital in critical condition. We don't know how they are doing at this point, and 1 person died on the way to hospital. As you mentioned, there was a secondary location, a home in this community where 2 people were found deceased. We don't know the connection to the school or the shooter. The person who is responsible for this, still waiting for RCMP to talk to us about that. Now, we did hear from one student who was in his class here yesterday afternoon when the school was locked down. He said he was in there for well over 2 hours. Here's Darian Quist. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I thought it was just like maybe a secure and hold. But once everything started circulating, we kind of realized that something was wrong. We got tables and barricaded the doors. It's definitely tense. I think we were all very nervous, so we tried to keep things light and just try and keep each other motivated and not fall into grief. But once people sent me some photos, it definitely set in what was actually happening.
When RCMP initially put that active shooter alert out, it said that they were looking for a woman in a dress with brown hair that was believed to be the active shooter. Now, since that post, police have not said anything more about the suspect, so we don't know if that was in fact still the suspect or if there's other details. So we don't have the identity, but officers are saying that they have been able to identify the suspect, but have not told us who that is. That's because they say it's for privacy reasons as well as investigative reasons. Now, police also say that they may never really know a motive. Take a listen.
We are not in a place now to be able to understand why and what may have motivated this tragedy. I think we will struggle to determine the why, but we're going to try and do our best to determine what transpired that day and what led up to this tragic event in Tumbler Ridge and across our communities.
So, Arthi, at this point, we know that there were 9 people that were killed. We don't know their ages. We don't know any details about them, but we're hoping to find out more from police later today.
You know, Caroline, we've been talking about a lot how this community is so tight-knit, a community of just 2,400 people, the school just 160. You referenced the grade 12 class, 20 graduating classmates were part of that class as well. So how are they all responding to this, a community where it feels like everyone knows each other?
Yeah, it's going to be a very heavy period of time as this community comes to terms with exactly what happened. Premier David Eby held a press conference last night. He said that the community will be supported.
Apparently, he's going to be holding another one. I don't know when. We'll listen to a bit of that. Like, we're live hours before question period, so just about anything at this point. We'll be watching due to what happened yesterday. Absolute tragedy. I will be right back, though. I'm going to grab some more water, and we'll get right back into things. I'll leave it to the CBC here.
Mental health supports will be sent here. Take a listen to what he had to say.
This is the kind of thing that feels like it happens in other places and not close to home in a way that that this feels for so many British Columbians and Canadians. The devastation these families face, it's just impossible to understand what they're going through without going through it yourself. That's why I ask for people across the country to do what we can to send love and support to that community right now, because they sure need it.
Eby also said that RCMP would be given whatever supports that they need for this investigation. I should mention, last night when we flew into Fort St. John, before we drove in here, we were on a plane with a number of RCMP officers, and we were talking to them, and one of them said that this will be a very difficult scene. And I don't think he meant in terms of the investigation. I think he just meant that this is going to be difficult for investigators. It'll be very heavy, obviously, for this community and for first responders.
Caroline, thank you for this. That's the CBC's Caroline Bargout in Tumbler Ridge, BC. We do want to take you now back to Ottawa because Prime Minister Mark Carney, we understand, has postponed a key overseas trip in light of the shooting, and politicians across the country are sending their messages of support to Tumbler Ridge. The CBC's Janice McGregor is in Ottawa. She's tracking that part of the story for us. So, Janice, we're hearing from MPs on Parliament Hill today, as well as from the Prime Minister, leader of the opposition. What are they saying?
Yeah, very much not business as usual. This morning, big fights of the day set aside really in favor of some big feelings, open emotions on display for the cameras this morning. We were expecting today to be about a major announcement, defense strategy, followed by the Prime Minister's departure, as you mentioned there, to Germany for the Munich Security Conference. Instead, it was a moment this morning for MPs to gather with their national caucuses. Industry Minister Melanie Joly saying this is a day to concentrate on the community of Tumbler Ridge. The Prime Minister is normally a fairly cool customer, but when he arrived this morning, he did appear visibly shaken. He was raised in a small northern community like the one where this happened. Listen to what he said and also the remarks by opposition leader Pierre Poilievre on his way into the Conservative National Caucus.
The nation mourns with you. Canada stands by you. I want to thank and pass on a number of world leaders who've reached out directly to me in solidarity and compassion. France, United Kingdom, His Majesty himself, Norway, Finland, India, United Arab Emirates, many others. The world is with you.
The fact that this took place at a secondary school, it makes it even more tragic. As a father, I can't even imagine the phone calls that parents might have received. I can't imagine the heartache and hell that they're living through at this moment. This is a time for all Canadians to unite, to support the families and the community at large.
Government House Leader Stephen McKinnon told reporters that following question period today, there will be a moment of silence in the House of Commons and an opportunity for all the party leaders to make statements and express the country's grief. He personally woke up to not just this tragedy, but another one in his own community, the Outaouais, dealing with a kind of shocking murder-suicide in the Algonquin community of Kitigan-Zibi involving children ages 10 and 12. So just words cannot express what a bleak morning this is in the National Capital Region. Flags at government buildings, as the Prime Minister announced, now at half-mast, including on the Peace Tower on Parliament Hill. The Prime Minister also designating a lot of federal officials' resources to help Tumbler Ridge at this time. The Public Safety Minister, Gary Nansangari, will be leading that. He is en route. We also learned from Liberal Minister Stephen Fuhr, who represents Kelowna, BC, that Gregor Robertson, a senior regional minister, is also on his way to Tumbler Ridge to see if there is anything else that community might need federal support to accomplish in their hour of need. The MP that represents this community in the House of Commons is Conservative Bob Zimmer. The CBC News reached him last evening, and this is what he had to say.
As a father of 4 children, I can only imagine parents, possibly have lost their children and lost family members, and it's.
Yep, grab a coffee, grab breakfast, or I guess lunch at this point. It's going to be a longer live stream, that's for sure. I was briefly watching on my phone. Let's see. Did it go through a break? No, it didn't. Still got a lot to go.
It's absolutely tragic. What can you say? I just want to hear from the people of Tumbler Ridge and just to hear them talk. I'm going to be there to listen.
He is on his way back to his riding, leaving Ottawa, in favor of being with his constituents.
And Janice, we mentioned there that there will be that moment of silence. But aside from that, parliamentarians have also been expressing sympathy and support. Tell us who else we've heard from and what they've had to say.
All right, we're going to briefly go over to the Western Standard. They are currently live covering this as well. Let me skip ahead here.
In Tumbler Ridge, BC. You're watching right now because you've all heard the news. Some of you woke up to it. Some of you saw it developing in the evening yesterday. It's not often we have things like this happen in our country, but it's shattering news, and it's getting attention around the world right now. So I want to talk with everyone about what we know, how we know it, and very importantly, what we know that most of the media will not report and why they will not report it. So I won't spend too much information on what you all know. Tumbler Ridge, BC, small community, around 2,500 people. Northeast BC. It's about just a little over 2 hours west of Grand Prairie in Alberta. Small little town. And they've been rocked by a mass shooting. We know that there are 9 people confirmed dead, 25 people confirmed injured.
I saw 27 confirmed injured, but 25 to 27. This is a large scale shooting. This is very, very bad.
Mother of the shooter is dead, and the little brother of the shooter is dead. Presumably, although I can't confirm, the other 7 confirmed dead are teachers or students at the local high school, and another 25 injured. My best guess would be that they're also from the school. The crime was committed, as far as we know, with a shotgun. Standard shotgun. I can't tell you what gauge, but these things are normally a 12 gauge, maybe a 14.
12, 20. There's a lot of gauges, but yeah.
But standard shotgun, as far as we know. So, this whole thing, I'll just preface this off the start. This is live, so maybe I'll say something insensitive. I'm going to try to stick to the facts. I'm going to try to stick to sober, cold analysis. But yeah, it's live, so maybe I say something insensitive. So forgive me if I do. But the story is of just such immense, tragic proportions, and I'm extremely disturbed by some of the actions of the police and the mainstream legacy media right now in covering this, that we've just got to get into it, and we've got to be tough about it. So an alert went out. I don't know if we have the alert to bring up here, studio, but an alert went out, an emergency alert went out on people's phones. You've all gotten these things. It's, weather warning, could be an Amber Alert, but an alert went out to people in the Tumbler Ridge area, and said that there was a woman in a dress on the loose shooting people, and people should shelter in place. A woman in a dress. Okay, that's interesting. But we have a clip from the RCMP. It's a very, very short clip where they're explaining what happened, and the RCMP use a word I've never heard in my life. Okay, so here's the emergency alert that went around. Tumbler Ridge alert, surrounding area. Active shooter alert issued by Tumbler Ridge RCMP. People are asked to stay inside and shelter in place. Lock your doors. Don't leave. Suspect is described as a female in a dress with brown hair. Shelter in place. Okay, so people in Tumbler Ridge are looking for a woman. Now, maybe that is just as the crisis is going on. Maybe that's just the information the police have at the time in the crisis. So we can maybe write that off as just this is what they know, and it was panicked. Information's scant and coming in fast and furious. So we can be a bit forgiving there. But in the press conference soon after the shooting, an RCMP officer. Let's just play that quick. All right, let's get it up on screen here. This is the RCMP quickly after the shooting. Let's play it.
We're still trying to determine a lot about the shooter at this stage right now. We believe we've been able to identify the shooter, but for privacy reasons and obviously for the conduct of the investigation, we're not releasing that information at that time until we're assured that we've connected with the appropriate people and identified things.
Oh, there's another one I'm looking for. The RCMP identify the shooter as a, quote, gun person. Do we have that video? Yes. Gun person? Okay, let's play that one. Let's play gun person video. Yeah.
The gun person.
Okay. And then separately, do you know the gun person's relationship to the...
That includes the deceased gun person.
Okay. And then separately, do you know the gun person's relationship to the...
That includes the deceased gun person.
Okay. And then separately, do you know the gun person's relationship to the...
Okay.
That includes the deceased gun person.
Okay. Gun person. Now that's a language. So that is a term that I did not know existed in the English language until yesterday evening. Gun person. I've heard of, the lone gunman, or there were several gunmen. We don't even really say the word gun woman. Maybe a large measure because women don't tend to do this kind of thing in very significant numbers. Credit to the female half of the species that women just don't seem to do crazy mass murderous things like this. But I've never heard the term gun person. So described in the emergency alert also as a female in a dress with brown hair. And the police also said they have no motive, and they have no idea where to start looking for a motive. Okay, so as this is developing yesterday, I got on the phone with some of our core leadership in the newsroom here, and some of our reporters. We had Dave Naylor, who leads our newsroom behind me here. Our main BC reporter, Jared Yager. We brought in some extra hands, like our Saskatchewan reporter, Chris Oldcorn. Very quickly, we realized this doesn't add up. Very quickly. At least it likely doesn't add up. For a simple reason. Women don't do mass shootings. They don't. There are going to be some exceptions, but it is a very, very small number. Based on the research I've done, only around 2% of mass school shootings are regular women. 2%. So they happen, but they are exceedingly rare. No one would place a bet that, okay, you hear a school shooting happens, make a quick, maybe prejudicial guess on who it is. No one says it was probably a woman. No one would bet on that. That is a bad bet. Women, to their credit, don't, or females, if we're talking schools, so girls, young women, they don't do this. And the RCMP are saying it's a woman. Well, that raises a big question. And then they start using weasel words like gun person, or inventing weasel words like gun person. So this obviously raises the pretty obvious question. You know where I'm going with this, and I don't want to make this something it's not, but this is an obvious question. So mass school shootings are conducted mostly by males identifying as females, or sometimes females identifying as males, like happened not very long ago in Nashville, where a Christian school was shot up. It's not a very big percentage. It's hardly even statistically relevant, the number of mass school shootings committed by regular females. They just don't do it generally. So just 2% are regular females. So it's fun. I asked Grok. We got to be careful how much we trust AI. And I use AI. It's good shorthand for things. But this is an example. Let's bring up the screenshot of what I asked Grok. I asked, short answer only, what is the probability that the mass shooter in Tumbler Ridge, BC is an actual biological woman? Grok said near 100% effectively certain. Official police emergency alert and multiple reports like The Guardian, CBC, Wikipedia, Al Jazeera describe the shooter as female, woman in...
Okay, so first off, hold on. You can't trust Wikipedia because anybody can essentially write whatever they please. Yeah, you have to be like approved and there's moderators, but you can't trust Wikipedia. Maybe for some things, but not everything. It's constantly being edited every day. And Al Jazeera, they have been known for not being the most legit. Sometimes they are, I'm not gonna lie. But I'm not going to Al Jazeera for my news. Let's just put it that way. Okay? Let's just put it that way. And then obviously the CBC is bullshit. And the Guardian is probably bullshit as well. But that's American, so I don't know. At the end of the day, take everything with a grain of salt. I would question, if the population is 2,400, what is the percentage of male to female? That would also be something to take into account. Because if only 2% of shootings are female, that's already a very low. Or mass shootings are female, that's already a very low percentage as it is. And then if it's an even lower percentage of females to male in the town, that just lowers it even further, I feel like. So, I don't know. This is a weird one. And I was kind of alluding to this earlier when I was talking. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. The police are withholding a lot of information. It's kind of crazy in the States. Somebody gets shot, for example, Charlie Kirk, and we know the shooter literally within the same day, or the suspect. And then as the information continues, we learn more and more. Something like this, though, in Canada, or even with any shooting in the States, we know pretty much within 24 hours. In this case, though, they're withholding it. Now, they do that if the people involved are underage or they're minors. They will withhold the information. So I don't know. I don't have the details. I don't think everybody has the details here, but there's definitely a lot of speculation. But at the end of the day, it's a horrid situation. We just need to get to the bottom of why this individual did what they did. And once again, you can go back to the beginning of the stream with what I said. I'm not repeating all that, but that's kind of where I'm going with it. And the Western Standard here is sort of going the same route.
Dressed with brown hair. No credible sources indicate transgender status or that the person is biologically male. Claims otherwise appear to be unsubstantiated speculation or misinformation on social media. I remember when Grok used to be cool. Grok used to not give a shit. Someone's obviously tampered with the Grok's algorithm, Grok's computing power, or however it is. So Grok says 100%. It is effectively certain. I said, bullshit. It just doesn't match up. 2% of mass school shootings are committed by women, and this is going to be in the 2%. It's possible, but I'm not going to bet on it. So we had to answer an obvious question, and we did. The Western Standard has, we're the Western Standard. We have a lot of contacts in Western Canada. That's our beat. So we quickly reached out to just people we know in the area, particularly around Grand Prairie, and we're able to quickly develop some on-the-ground sources. There was a lot coming out on social media. Some of it turned out to be credible. Some of it turned out to be bullshit. There was one poor person, a transgendered person, who was misidentified. Their picture put all over X and other social media platforms last night, identifying that person as the shooter, because everybody kind of jumped to the conclusion, and it turns out correctly that this was probably a trans person, and a lot of people misidentified the person. I'm not going to put the picture up. This is a young person who's obviously already having a hard time with life, and now having probably a much harder time now that a ton of people have seen their face incorrectly identified as the shooter. I can't imagine what that person's going through. But we did fall for it. We saw a lot of stuff going around on social media. Some of that provided leads, but that's not substantiated.
This is why I don't report on things or do live streams on things right away. That's why I just don't. You will get yourself into a lot of shit. Whether it's with authorities or somebody else down the road, if you are just like reporting on things on the spot and then running with it, yeah, you're gonna get yourself in a lot of shit. And in that case, I didn't see the photos going around of the alleged shooter, but there's definitely a lot of accounts out there that probably reposted it and claimed it was. And those accounts you should probably block, because they're just going to continue to not fact check things and just post absolute garbage. And like I said, you can get yourself in a lot of shit. And it's just simply like finding the truth at the end of the day and not just running with whatever. But yeah, you can pretty much jump to the conclusion here of what happened and what's going on. And based on everything there, along with what the Western Standard is now about to say and has said, yeah. Well, I would recommend Moose on the Loose. I would recommend Capital Clips. There's definitely a few other people I would recommend. But you always got to take everything with a grain of salt, right? You can't fucking go all in on everything constantly. You gotta tiptoe sometimes. You gotta be careful. Rebel, I like Rebel as well. Rebel does some good stuff. Absolutely. Yeah, Rebel's definitely a good one. Rebel gets a lot of shit because of the way they, I guess, sort of confront certain people when they do interviews. And I don't know, I guess you could say things about that, but I don't really care. When they confronted Trudeau in Davos, when they confronted all those people, Freeland and all the ministers in Davos, I thought it was great. It was perfect stuff right there. And nobody else does it. That's the thing, right? They're the only ones that actually go out of their way to do it. They have the funding, they have the team, they have the resources. Sure, you could say some things about how they do their reporting. It can be a bit scummy at times. I'm not going to deny that, but I also think sometimes, you know, you got to be a bit of a scumbag to get the good stuff. And Rebel's sort of willing to go out of their way to do that, and I respect it. I respect it. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, most reporters are incredibly biased to the left and are just there to prop up the government. So it's sort of refreshing when you actually get an outlet that goes against the grain. Just saying, it's kind of good, kind of nice.
Information. It was our job as a news company, as a publication, to get confirmation. And so we worked with sources on the ground, and we did confirm who it was. We could put up the correct picture here. The Western Standard confirmed the identity of the shooter as Jesse Strang, confirmed by. Let's get the picture of Jesse Strang up. Jesse Strang, confirmed by multiple sources. A biological male, teenager, began transitioning from a male to a female, 15 to 17 years old, best we can tell. And as best we can tell, Jesse is the shooter's real name. I guess Jesse could be both a male and female name, so did not change the name. So that's as best as we can tell. That's not 100%, but that's as best as we can tell. We've identified the shooter. This is the shooter right here. You're not going to get it really anywhere else. You're going to see some of this on social media, but social media, I mean, it's often the first source of things, and social media has helped to identify.
Like, I don't have any issues with the pleb. I don't care. Like, I don't hate him. I don't like him. I don't watch his content. I don't really have any comments on him. He kind of just does this thing, and that's it, you know? So that's just how I see it at the end of the day. I don't have any issues with him. It's just another one of the, like, conservative influencer guys on the internet. But whatever, he does his thing. I have no strong opinions, negative or positive, just kind of neutral at the end of the day on that one.
But they often get it wrong as well. One other independent media, Juno News, did get it. Western Standard was the first to have it, with multiple confirmed sources that this was the individual. One of those sources is not the RCMP. The RCMP is not confirming who the shooter was. They are saying it's because they have to notify next of kin. Well, guess what? The shooter shot his next of kin. The shooter shot his mother and little brother. He shot his next of kin. The RCMP says they're waiting on notifying next of kin. The next of kin is murdered. The RCMP is just not really wanting to say why. That's what's happening here. The legacy media, as of when I checked right before coming on the air, as of 9:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, 8:30 a.m. local time in British Columbia, not a single legacy media outlet in Canada or on the planet have reported on the identity of the shooter. They're still just going with the official story from the RCMP. A woman in a dress with brown hair. That's it. Woman in a dress with brown hair. Or gun person. Gun person, that new word that the RCMP invented yesterday. You know, I got to feel a little bit bad for the RCMP communications officer who had to do this. I mean, there's like all sorts of federal law and guidelines on how you're supposed to identify people not misgendering them, etc. The poor RCMP comms officer, I don't want to beat up on him. He's just following the rules, the dumb rules that are written for him. He's probably given this situation. It comes on his lap, and they're like, all right, you have to write a press release. And he's just shit. They know it's bullshit, and they have to say it anyway. So the RCMP are not telling the truth here. They're intentionally obfuscating, but obfuscating is official federal government policy here to not misgender anyone. So it's not all his fault. But the legacy media is under no obligation to report only what the government says, the government's official bullshit line. They're under no obligation. They know. They've seen what we've written. I know tons of people in the legacy media. They see that the Western Standard's out there. They see all the stuff on social media, some of it confirmed, some of it not confirmed, some of it incorrect. But we've done our work. We've verified. We have sources on the ground right now in Tumbler Ridge. We have a freelancer. We're probably one of the only media on the planet with someone we've hired on the ground in Tumbler Ridge. We have reporters driving through the bush right now to Tumbler Ridge. We've done our homework. We know who this person is. We know what's going on. Everybody in Tumbler Ridge knows what's going on. I didn't get a single call. None of my reporters in the newsroom behind me or our guys in BC.
Okay, you got all that going on. That's fantastic. Could you at least invest in a better microphone? I don't know what's going on with your audio, but it is clicking and peaking constantly. I had to turn it down, and I'm thinking of just swapping over to something else because I feel like my ears are getting blown out. Speaking of switching to something else, we got a Moose on the Loose video here. We'll briefly jump to this, and then we'll come back to the Western Standard here.
That particular clause that you're talking about, it's referred to as the Henry VIII clause for a reason. It gives the government massive amounts of power, and it's virtually unprecedented.
The CBC is despicable. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we got some terrible news, which we'll get to in a bit here because YouTube doesn't like that stuff in the first 35 seconds of a video. We also got Andrew Scheer going on CBC, breaking down the Conservatives' plan going forward here, trying to work with Mark Carney and get rid of all their draconian stuff in their bills they keep trying to slip under the rug, things to benefit Brookfield. Got some other stuff here. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we got Kirk posting this. Insolvencies in Canada are climbing, and in some areas, mortgage delinquencies are at a 10-year high. There are whole areas in Canada that mortgage values are above house value. Renewals will be a tough decision for many. Insolvent homeowners have $112,000 in unsecured debt. One market downturn and Canada would see a 2008 US equivalent of a market crash. This is right on point. This is a very scary thing. I used to do the trust accounting for my ex-wife's notary office. We used to do $10 to $12 million of sales through the office every month. I used to balance the numbers there, and I can tell you this is spot on. As Kirk said, we have a mortgage value that is above the house value. People have to decide, do they want to go bankrupt? Do they want to eat the loss? Or do they want to keep paying for a mortgage that's way more, in some cases, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 more than the value of the house? This is really destroying a lot of Canadian lives. You know, so many people trusted Trudeau back in the day, and it's coming back to bite a lot of Canadians.
Interest rates are at historic lows, Glenn.
Okay, but it's still a lot of money. No. It's still a lot of money.
Moving ahead, we've got Conservative Doug Shipley posting this. He forced the Liberal government to reveal that it spent at least $1.6 million in taxpayer money on legal fees to fight and delay access to information orders. This should be against the law. This should just be open to the public. There should be no access to information requests. It should just by default be available. Are we surprised? No, the Liberals are corrupt. Moving ahead, we've got more than half of British Columbians fear for their safety, survey suggests. Yeah, no kidding. There's certain areas of town, multiple towns I won't go to, I won't get out of the car in because they're dangerous. Canada has become dangerous under the Liberals. Moving ahead, we've got 10 people have been ended, including the suspect after a school pew-pew event in Tumbler Ridge, BC. I believe this is the third worst event like this in Canadian history. This is horrific. Hearts and prayers go out to the families. This is absolutely awful. What's also awful is what CBC is doing with this. Listen to this. As Melissa points out, holy crap, state-funded CBC can't hold back, bringing up the United States in politics as this mass pew-pew event has unfolded in Tumbler Ridge.
The people involved directly and indirectly.
Yeah, I think about the United States where, first of all, they have a lot of school shootings. I mean, if you look proportionally at the fact they have 10 times the population that we do, they still have way more than 10 times the number of school shootings but very quickly after each of those shootings, it devolves into partisan politics. I don't see that happening here. I don't, but you tell me in terms of how do you see the political reaction to this unfolding?
The irony of his statement there is not going to turn into partisan politics, and that's what they're turning this into. They're bringing up America. I mean, what's Mark Carney running on? Scary America, and they're just tying it right to it. What's next? They're going to say Trump-style politics made its way up to Tumbler Ridge, and that's why that happened? Right now, it is absolute confusion of who did this, but there's numerous people who live there who say they have information, and we've got Amy Ham here from the National Post, columnist, saying that 2 locals have identified the attacker's family and claimed that it was a trans-identified male son. He pew-pewed his mother and his brother before going to school and then ending 8 more people, and 25 people have been injured, 10 have perished, but she says this has not been confirmed by the police. Yukon Strong saying, I've been contacted by someone I grew up who lives nearby Tumbler Ridge. This is what they passed on. Grade 9 trans boy to girl. Parents were ended, school pew-pewed. This is just absolutely horrific. So obviously this is going to dominate the news cycle here. Instead of focusing on the victims and the families, what do we have CBC doing here? As Mario pointing out, the CBC couldn't help resist calling the town Trump instead of Tumbler. Just listen to it. They call it Trump Tumbler.
In fact, everybody in the town of Tumbler Ridge and beyond is being asked to shelter in place. I'm here along with Sarah Penton in Kelowna.
If she noticed, she made them.
These people are not right in the head. They just have Donald Trump constantly on their mind. It's an illness. It is. They can't speak about anything Canadian without mentioning the United States and Donald Trump. This horrific tragedy has nothing to do with the US, and they're still trying to make it a US related thing. In any way, shape, or form. It is actually crazy. My God. And you know what? You could blame it on the Democrat-style gun laws that the Liberals have implemented, because clearly they haven't worked. They haven't worked in the States, and they aren't working here. So if you really want to have a whole United States argument about this, the Liberals need to stop adopting Democrat-style gun laws, which haven't worked. Period.
Mistake, she should say it.
In the town of Tumbler Ridge and beyond. In the town of Tumbler Ridge and beyond.
In the town of Tumbler Ridge. What a bunch of bullcrap on here. We know what they're doing here. Now, we do have this. The police acted very quickly, which saved a bunch of lives.
The question, and I'll add that this is a small, tight-knit community with a small RCMP detachment as well, who responded in 2 minutes. No doubt saving lives today. And just to again thank the responding officers for their courage, for their dedication, their professionalism.
2 minutes, that's impressive. So some real heroes there stepped up to the plate and saved some lives. Initially, the whole trans aspect of this, I think, came from the police when, well, they said this.
That includes the deceased gun person.
Okay. And then
the deceased gun person. So obviously the police don't want to get wrapped up into all the politics of this. Jump over to CBC. We got Andrew Scheer breaking down the Conservatives' position on Mark Carney's new bills. They're basically getting them to cut out all the crap that they're trying to help Brookfield with, like being able to not be screened by conflict of interest, draconian stuff like that. So some stuff can get through and try to help Canadians. And they basically have a rule here. As long as it doesn't hurt Canadians, they're going to let the stuff pass.
What is your reaction to what Sean Fraser had to say? Because when the Justice Committee meeting got canceled yesterday, it was billed as a sign of progress. Where are things?
Well, it's just a completely false characterization for Sean Fraser to say that. It's Liberals who have chosen to prioritize a bill that is divisive, that has divided Canadians and divided parliamentarians as well. We proposed 19 times in the fall to park C9 so that we could deal with bail reform. That's something that Canadians feel very strongly about. We don't believe the government's solution to bail reform goes far enough, but we said, well, at least it doesn't do any further harm. Let's pass that very quickly. It's the government that chose to keep C9. The same is true with their other crime legislation. It's Liberals who are choosing to use C9 as an obstruction measure against their own legislation.
My understanding, though, from what I heard yesterday, was that maybe this had gone to negotiations, perhaps with the House leaders, the Justice Minister or his proxies, and the critics on this portfolio, and that maybe some progress was being made, and the Bloc would have been in on this too, because you're kind of on opposite sides with them a bit on this. Is that in fact the case? Are you moving towards something that can go to committee maybe as soon as tomorrow?
Well, it's already at committee, but maybe what I would say is that we are engaged in good faith conversations about what aspects of C9 are supportable. Protecting access to places of worship of all faiths, protecting sites that are connected to faith-based groups. Wide support for that. We don't believe anybody should be harassed or intimidated on their way to a temple, a synagogue, a mosque, or a church.
David Cochran with, of course, what's happened for the past 2 years. These people are getting terrorized going to these places. And we're talking about a Pew Pew event. I mean, people in these places of worship have been targeted and lead has flown through those places too.
Areas where all the parties agree on, and there's more contentious issues that are blocking that, maybe we should focus on the common ground and get that passed quickly.
So you're talking about splitting the bill, and I appreciate, yes, it's at committee. I meant a compromise that could go to committee by tomorrow. Are we close to that, or are you insisting on the contentious bits being taken out and put into maybe a separate piece of legislation?
Well, at the risk of compromising good faith conversations, what I would say is that we made our position very clear. There are elements of the bill that are not offensive to most Canadians. There are elements of the bill that do not empower government to censor religious texts or religious speech. If the government has a willingness to work on that common ground, we would take that in good faith.
But are we close to seeing something on this by tomorrow? Because I appreciate the contentious issues. I mean, you have argued that this will criminalize certain religious scriptures and texts. The Bloc believes that the religious exemption is being used as a shield against hate speech, and there's some challenges in reconciling those. Do you think we will see some kind of a compromise put to committee tomorrow, or is it too soon to know?
Well, first I would say it's not just Conservatives saying that. The Liberal minister himself admitted that this would criminalize aspects of those faith-based texts. And there are existing laws.
When did he admit?
He came to committee and he said absolutely that. Mark Miller said that.
Parts of the Bible.
Yeah, that thing went viral on X. David Cochran's trying to sweep this under the rug as usual.
It would be criminal, because Mark Miller's saying on social media that is not the case. So he's just saying.
I can show you the clip where he was at committee and he said absolutely that would be captured. Those are his words. I mean, I believe that was pretty well disseminated when he said it. And what I would say is there's lots of laws existing on the books right now that aren't being used by the government to prosecute hate speech, and the massive rise in things like anti-Semitism that we've seen, where streets are taken over for days and days at a time in some cases, and bricks thrown through daycares, in fact, shot up. There are lots of laws existing on the books that are not being used that could go into that. We don't believe that the answer is to add new laws that if I take the Mark Miller's own words, the intention would be to make some passages of religious texts illegal. Now, what I will say in terms of timelines, it's hard for me to assess the pace of that, but I will say that we've been, that we have been having good faith conversations to see if there's a way to get to prevent the Liberals from using C9 to block other pieces of legislation that we would say, hey, if this improves the judicial system, let's look for results.
Okay, so on the Budget Implementation Act, because this is going to be a big one, not that this one isn't serious, but this is unquestionably a confidence motion and needs to get passed before the end of March, I believe. Kate, who was just in the studio, had some reporting that there is a conversation happening between the Conservatives and the Liberals after the meeting with Mr. Poilievre and Mr. Carney to maybe strip out some components of the Budget Implementation Act, including the bit to give ministers the power to exempt certain companies from certain non-criminal pieces of legislation if it helps with economic competitiveness. This is an issue that...
This guy's unbelievable. Non-criminal. Is really nothing going on there. Yeah, they want to make it so Brookfield isn't affected by conflict of interest because Mark Carney's wrapped up in them. If this is what Carney's able to get done in his first year with a minority government, this many conflicts of interest, which is the most comprehensive list in Canada of his conflicts of interest, which is no thanks to any of the media. It's just some guy on YouTube doing this. What will Mark Carney be able to achieve with a majority government? I mean, I haven't had time to fill in some of these. Manulife when he's over in China, BMO and ATCO, Cattle, this Chinese battery company. Like, I still have more work to do on this. There's so many conflicts of interest. These are not some little conflicts of interest like the Red Chris mine. Mark Carney named this project and he's invested in it. This should be highly against the law. He should be immediately thrown out of power and charged for this. But clearly what we've learned is our system is so unbelievably corrupt that the RCMP don't want to step in. They don't care. They'll just let this slide. And Mark Carney just ripping off taxpayers. With that said, listen to this exchange from Sandra Cobina, Conservative, with Mark Miller.
Why should one minister, individual minister, be allowed to bypass 150 years of Canadian law and exempt a person or company of their choosing?
Look, that may be your view, but I don't think that is what's happening.
Well, that's how it's written.
It doesn't say people are being exempted from 150 years of law.
It says from any federal law except the criminal code.
Right. There's no mention of years or.
It's any federal law except for the so it's any federal law that has been passed over the last 150 years.
Right.
You can't get her, man. She is way too smart. Mark Miller thought he could do some cheeky little thing to shake this question. It's not working.
I'm not going to parse this out with you.
So just to be clear, you don't need it to do your job, but you want to keep it nonetheless.
I think it's helpful to have.
Do you see the potential of abuse, though, in that companies or people will have to lobby you personally and not care about the law itself?
No one's asked me to overturn any laws.
You would have the ability to.
In some context, perhaps. But again, this is something that would have to be used very judiciously.
Yeah, like we're going to trust these guys to respect the rule of law. They're going to let Brookfield run rampant with contracts is what they're going to do.
How could you possibly think that this would not undermine the trust in our democracy then?
I think Canadians expect us to act reasonably. I think Canadians expect us to be judicious in our decision making. Passing a law like C-15, which all members will have the opportunity to vote on, is something that is inherently accountable in and of itself.
Well, it has this particular clause that is very problematic. It is all over the news. I have a letter with 43 organizations asking for you to strike it because of the potential of abuse, but you still want to keep it.
I think I've answered that question about 3 times now.
I just don't find it reasonable for you to have the powers of a king, essentially.
I certainly don't have the powers of a king.
If you are allowed to exempt any entity from any federal law, it is like the powers of a king.
Is that a statement or a question?
Well, it's a fact.
Thank you, Ms. Kobina. That concludes the time.
Mark Miller, just unbelievable. This swindly little guy slithered his way up from the backbenches. Trudeau's rats are still around despite the ship mostly sinking. It's still staying afloat somehow.
Where are things on that? Are you willing to compromise on the Budget Implementation Act if the government, in fact, accedes to this request? Where are things?
Well, what I would say is that that particular clause that you're talking about, it's referred to as the Henry VIII clause for a reason. It gives the government massive amounts of power, and it's virtually unprecedented. And what the Liberals are trying to do is give ministers the ability to circumvent several laws that no one else gets that kind of power to do. So what we've said is if they accept our compromises, and if we say to them, look, let's build some scrutiny around that, some transparency. Let's make sure that Liberals don't get to do what they've always done. When Liberals believe that no one's looking, what do? They have the Green Slush Fund scandal where they line the pockets of wealthy, well-connected Liberal insiders. There are all kinds of examples of Liberals using tools to enrich their friends. So we want to make sure that can't happen. So if they agree with us that they will modify or build better protections around that particular clause, then what we've said is that we would allow for a path for the budget bill to pass.
Okay, so
I mean, just think about this. If Brookfield is able to bypass all these laws and regulations, environmental regulations, all this kind of stuff, there's no way to keep track of this. I mean, I don't even have enough of them on here. I don't know how many Brookfield companies they own that are working with in partnership with on my chart here, but it's not 1,900 companies. That's too big of a task for me to handle here. Not unless I have another 10 years. We sure hope we don't have Mark Carney as prime minister for 10 years. I don't think he actually wants that. He only wants a majority for 4 years because, well, Mark Carney's carried interest, the 3% he gets off of this Brookfield Global Transition Fund 1. We don't know the exact dates, but roughly we can ballpark it here. The first initial closing was July 2021, which is what we see here. Brookfield News, July 27th, 2021. Brookfield Asset Management, $7 billion closing of the GBTF Fund 1. This is the one that Mark Carney set up. And we know the final closing was June 2022, which is what we see here. Another $15 billion raised. June 22nd, 2022. Once again, total capital raise $15 billion. LGBTF. So this is when Carney's fund ended. So it's somewhere in there, and then it's a 10-year fund, putting it at 2032. And if they extend it to 12 years, which is in the contract, then it could be 2034, which is why I have these different numbers here. So this timeline here, 2032 and 2034, what does that perfectly line up with? None other than Mark Carney's stock options in Brookfield. We know this from the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. So Mark Carney with his 2 sets of shares here, strike price $35 and $40. You can see the expiring date is 2033 and 2034. So he needs to boost everything before these dates, which lines up with the Brookfield Global Transition Fund 1. So really, that's his end date. He doesn't want to be there any longer. At maximum, he'd want to be in there 7 years.
We believe that it's our job as the official opposition to hold up a light, to scrutinize, and to propose solutions. We believe that they have tried for a massive overreach here. I mean, think about ministers just having the ability to circumvent duly passed legislation, regulations, all kinds of power. I don't believe Canadians want that. When you allow for a government to create an economy where the only companies, businesses, workers who get to succeed are those people who have special access to ministers, that creates terrible outcomes for everybody. We need to move quickly after 10 years of terrible Liberal policies that drove up costs and chased away investment, but we can't do it in a way where governments get incredible power without scrutiny. Every time that's been tried in every country that's been tried, it leads to corruption and terrible economic outcomes.
You got to wonder, why isn't the NDP or the Bloc pushing back against this stuff? It's like so draconian what they're trying to do here.
Policies driving up costs. Your central thesis has been that deficits have been a big factor in driving up the costs. This Budget Implementation Act would allow for an $80 billion plus deficit, depending on where...
This isn't a thesis. This is fact. This is what happens when you run big deficits. It increases inflation. That's not a thesis.
Where things go. I mean, how comfortable are you letting that go through? Because that's what the end result would be. Even if you do get this change, and I appreciate the points you've outlined on that, it is an $80 billion deficit budget that the Conservatives will be compromising on allowing it to go ahead.
Yeah, well, not to get too procedurally wonky, David, although maybe your viewers would
give it a shot.
But the spending in budgets happen when the budget implementation, when the budget vote itself happens. There's a Ways and Means motion that happened back.
Fair point. Fair point.
So that's already locked in.
Yeah, he's calling him on his bull crap here. David Cochrane just tried to corner Andrew Scheer and basically say, well, if you let this go through, then you're basically supporting an $80 billion deficit. Like, this is unbelievable. He should be calling out Carney for doing the $80 billion deficit, not that the Conservatives would be allowing this to go through. And as he just said, the Ways and Means motion, when they put that through in the first place, already gives them the money to do that. Remember, Mark Carney didn't even have a budget. They're able to get money without it. It's just that's never really happened before. Aside from in the times of election, you need a way to bridge over to the next budget or to the next government. But Mark Carney just decided to run the country with no budget for whatever that was, 6 months. So good on Andrew Scheer here calling out David Cochrane's crap.
This is legislative changes, some of which Conservatives have long been calling for. Some of which we don't agree with. You know, they're putting billions of dollars more into the Canada Infrastructure Bank. That's something that hasn't delivered results. But that's already, again, that's spending that's already been locked in. So if we can get some measures around transparency and accountability on what they're trying to do with this ministerial power overreach, then I'm optimistic that we can find a path forward.
Is this level of cooperation that you're offering, because it was very different before the break, for whatever reasons, is it just to avoid an election? The public opinion polling would suggest that they are ahead by a small amount or a large amount. The gap on leadership is quite large if you look at favorability ratings and all these sorts of things. And a lot of the analysis and even talk from people in your caucus is, we don't want an election. We're worried about an election, so let's not give them an excuse to call an election by being obstructionists in Parliament. And this is more self-defense and avoiding self-harm than it is cooperation. Well,
first of all, we make decisions based on principle, not politics. And secondly, I would say I don't agree with the characterization. If you look at since the election, we signaled right up front. We said, look, after 10 years of Liberal policies, carbon taxes, inflationary deficits, soft on crime policies that have drastically made our country less safe and more dependent on the U.S. economy, we need to get to the results phase. In the spring, we passed Bill C-5. That's what Mark Carney claimed that would allow him to build all kinds of new major projects. They haven't been able to get a single new project through that office, but we facilitated the passage of that bill. In the fall, we tried 19 times to park C-9 to deal with bail reform. Liberals only agreed on the 20th time. So if you look back at the last few months, we are consistently saying where a Liberal bill does no further harm, where they steal one of our ideas, or where Mark Carney is claiming that this will get the results that Canadians expect, we're saying, okay, well, we will let that pass, and Canadians can judge him on the results.
So it's not about a spring election at all.
Nothing's
You're not
really
worried about an election in a little bit.
David Cochrane is unbelievable, like just completely trying to smear the whole Conservative Party here. Obviously, there's politics going on here, but I mean, for someone who's supposed to be unbiased asking the questions, he really seems like he's a cheerleader for the Liberal Party.
We were working.
That's because he is. I mean, they literally paid the CBC to stick around. They're keeping it afloat. We have David Eby here. Not gonna watch the whole thing, but he looks like he's having a rough one.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Like you, I am just learning about the horror of the tragedy that unfolded in Tumbler Ridge this evening over the course of the day. This is a devastating and unimaginable tragedy. We can't imagine what the community is going through, but I know it's causing us all to hug our kids a little bit tighter tonight. I'm just out of an update with RCMP leadership, Dwayne McDonald. I want to thank him for being available this evening, and a conversation with the Prime Minister about this terrible tragedy. Here's the latest information that we have. I understand that there are 10 people in total who are dead, 2 different sites. 8 of the people who died as a result of the shootings were at the school, including an individual we understand is the suspected shooter, who is believed to have died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. There are about 25 people who have been triaged by health authorities with various physical injuries, some profoundly serious, and some more minor injuries. Right now, information is very limited as police do their work, and the RCMP has asked for patience as they work through methodically to ensure that they are supporting families and getting to the bottom of what happened today. I'd like to take this opportunity to ask British Columbians, to ask all Canadians, to wrap the people of Tumbler Ridge, wrap these families with love. Not just tonight, but tomorrow and into the future. This is something that will reverberate for years to come. As British Columbians, I know that one of the things we do best is look after each other, and I'm asking British Columbians to look after the people of Tumbler Ridge tonight. For our government's role, we'll make sure that the resources are there for the community. They're already being deployed on the site, and I'd like to ask the Public Safety Minister to provide you an update on what's happening in the community to provide support right now. Minister.
Thank you, Premier. While the RCMP emergency alert has been lifted, the people of Tumbler Ridge remain in a state of crisis following one of the worst mass shootings in our province's and country's history. This is a devastating day for a close-knit community, and the loss being felt is profound. There are truly no words that can adequately describe the pain being carried tonight by parents, families, and loved ones of the victims. British Columbians and people across the country are standing with the Tumbler Ridge community tonight. I would like to thank the RCMP officers who were on the scene within 2 minutes of receiving the call. That speed and professionalism saved lives today. I would also like to thank paramedics, firefighters, healthcare workers, victim services staff, and all first responders who acted immediately to support this community in an unimaginably horrific moment. This is only the beginning for so many who have families who have been impacted by today's tragic events. The shockwaves of this horrific event will continue to reverberate through the community and throughout the country for some time. Education Ministry staff have been in continued contact with the school district today, and we are actively mobilizing trauma and crisis response supports. We are sending trauma-informed counselors to the region to support kids and their families during this time. The school district will be making supports available, and once we have locations for where these supports will be, the district will share that information on social media. And we will be making sure services are available to members of the broader community who need it as well. There is a psychiatric liaison nurse working in the community right now, and another starting tonight at 10 p.m. who will be working through the night on the ground in Tumbler Ridge. So already tonight there is help available now, with more to come. People can contact 310 Mental Health Support at 3.
All right, we're going to do a little bit of a skip ahead here. I would assume questions from reporters?
We'll now take questions from the media. For media in the room, please come to join us at the microphone here. State your name and outlet, and the Premier will answer your question.
Thank you. Good evening. Michelle Morton here with CBC. Can you tell me a bit more about the specifics in regards to medical care being sent up, if any additional? We're hearing about 25 people being sent for care related to serious and non-life-threatening injuries.
What we can share right now is there were 25 individuals who were triaged for medical care, varying degrees of severity of injury. BC EHS will be providing an update this evening about more specifics related to care, where people are, and so on.
Hearing over the past couple of weeks, we've heard about schools being threatened in Coquitlam, for example, in that area, and now hearing about this situation in Tumbler Ridge. What's your message to parents who might feel uneasy sending their kids to school right now?
Well, I mean, it's hard to know what to say on a night like tonight. This is the kind of thing that feels like it happens in other places and not close to home in a way that that this feels for so many British Columbians and Canadians. The devastation these families face, it's just impossible to understand what they're going through without going through it yourself. But I can say for myself, and I'm sure for many British Columbians, many Canadians, it makes us think about our kids' safety when they're going to school. We take it for granted. You go to school, you come home safe. And events like this give us pause about that safety that many Canadians have the privilege to enjoy across this country. In the days and weeks to come, we'll look at this incident and try to understand what opportunities there are to learn from an unspeakable tragedy like this. But for tonight, it's about making sure that those families are receiving all the supports that they can.
Do you know when we'll learn more about the investigation as well?
Yes, RCMP have asked for patience right now. They understand that British Columbians, people of Tumbler Ridge, want to know everything possible to try to make sense of what happened in Tumbler Ridge today. They have work to do on the ground. They've advised that the community is safe and secure, that the threat is over from this incident. But the work for them and for the community is ongoing. They'll provide details as often and as comprehensively as they can going forward. And we'll follow the police lead on being able to provide additional information.
I feel like they're withholding information, and they kind of already said that. So how about you just sort of release some stuff to let us know what the hell exactly was happening? That way the speculation can kind of just go away. Because there's a lot of people that are just posting things to post things, right? So if we just kind of had the facts, I think all of that would clear up right away. Just simple. Let's see what's going on here.
We continue to track devastating news from the small town of Tumbler Ridge in northeast British Columbia. At least 9 people were killed in a mass shooting. The suspect is also dead. 6 of the victims were found dead inside the local school. A 7th died while being transported to hospital. Officers then went to a home where they found 2 more people dead. Police say the suspect died from a self-inflicted injury in the school. Well, there are people online who are talking about the possible suspect and other details. But this information has not been confirmed to CBC News by sources or law enforcement. And we do want to stick to confirmed details only. So we do want to note that within our coverage. But as we do learn more, we will certainly share those confirmed details with you. With that in mind, I want to head over to Vancouver for the CBC's Tanya Fletcher, who's tracking all of the latest developments for us. So, Tanya, take us through what we do know right now about what happened yesterday.
Still very basic information.
Yeah, okay, so once again, it's just going to be the same old. We have an update from the man, the myth, the legend, Nick Shirley. The very man who ended Tim Wall's career. So we're going to play some of this. And then in roughly an hour and 15 minutes, statements by members and the House should start. And then we'll get into question period probably around 2:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
We are live. Welcome, David. It's like seeing a longtime best friend you haven't seen in a while. How are you doing?
Yeah, good to see you again, Nick.
It's
doing
been
well.
a while.
Yes.
David, well, we're going to get into the fraud. We're going to start talking about the fraud that's been taking place. But how's everything been for you since the video got posted nearly a month ago?
Well, it's been pretty chaotic. It's something that has sort of crystallized which side of the line that someone is going to be on, whether they're going to be on the side of good or evil. And that even includes some of my family members. And it is sort of emblematic of what I said when our second video was coming out, before it had come out, that I said this is going to be World War III. And what I meant by that is we're really in a battle of the good versus the evil. And we're seeing it all throughout the country now. I've heard from people from all 50 states who have found the same sorts of fraud in their states that we found here in Minnesota. And it's really been an awakening for the country to know that they have been so poorly served by their elected officials to allow this fraud to go on and actually propagate it and support it. And so it's a good thing that we're fighting this battle right now as we speak.
Because think about it, what we did is we went out, we simply just went to the daycares and we showed the fraud that was taking place. And we also went to these other healthcare providers. And people knew about the fraud, but they just had never seen it with their own eyes. And so what we did is we're actually reshaping how people view the United States and how they look at some of these programs that the United States has for welfare programs, or whether it just be programs where tax dollars get sent. No, can anybody really trust where our dollars are going at this point because of how blatant this fraud's been happening for, how long it's been taking place?
It's pretty clear that a lot of people saw what was going on and they felt powerless. They felt overwhelmed. They knew it was wrong, but they didn't have a way to really get their voices heard. And I think we gave them that opening. We gave them that person they could point to and say, that's my guy, those are my guys. And now they're not afraid to speak up because we brought it out there. We shone a light on the fraud and let everybody know what was going on. And now people feel emboldened to come out. They feel empowered to come out and speak out, whereas before they were afraid of being ostracized or called a racist or an Islamophobe or any of those names. And now that fear of that is sort of dissipated and they feel like they can come out and they can say what they really feel.
100%, because I originally went to Minnesota last June and I had a bunch of people interviewed who were set up to be interviewed, and they were all too afraid to be interviewed when it came down to do the interview because they were afraid of being called an Islamophobe or just having to deal with the hate they would maybe get from inside their community or the backlash they would get from people within inside their own community. And we saw it firsthand with Governor Tim Walz instantly calling people like me and you white supremacists when we were just showing the fraud that was taking place. And today I want to get into some of the the new discoveries that have been taking place since we uploaded our video. And it's funny because me and you, we did it on the daycares, then we did it on the healthcare providers, and we also did it on the non-emergency medical transportation vehicle companies. So far, Quality Learning Center, they have completely packed up their bags, and they have left actually, and they're no longer inside that building. Did you see that?
I did see that, yes.
What was your response when you saw the U-Haul arriving to Quality Learning Center?
My reaction was that it's the start of a new way of looking at things, and it's a start of justice being served. And I think it's going to be the start of a lot of these fraudulent businesses closing up and people realizing that they've been duped for years, and they're very angry. They're very unhappy, and these politicians are being called to answer for the injustice that they have foisted upon society for all these years.
100%. I want to backtrack a little bit now that we got some people here in the chat. So me and David, we obviously broke the news about the fraud that was taking place inside of Minnesota. We didn't just break the news, more so we shed light on it because people knew it was happening, but nobody had actually been able to show people in a way where they could visually see that the fraud was taking place. So me and Dave are going to be talking about that. The Equality Learning Center hoodies are available in the pinned comment down below in the live chat, and they'll also be in the description of this video. So if you want to help support the cause, you can go ahead and get an awesome Quality Learning Center hoodie. We also do have new support independent journalism hoodies available there as well, if you want to go ahead and cop those as well. But David, so it looks like President Trump just gave an interview and he commented on the fraud. Let's go ahead and let's watch what President Trump had to say. And we're going to get into some of these other videos we have here as well. But it's been super interesting because a lot of the things me and you touched on, now they're being revealed and people are now seeing that, oh, wait, so there's actually interpreter fraud too, non-emergency medical transportation fraud. And it just kind of cracks me up because everyone tried to debunk me and you, and in reality, they couldn't because what we said was factual and true. We'll get into that later, but let's get your reaction to this clip right here.
Take a look at Minnesota. So we think it's at least $19 billion of fraud, medical, every fraud. Somalia has come in here. What they've done to our country, these people, they've come into our country, and what they've done with that fake congresswoman, she's so bad. No, we're going to get to the bottom of it. We have the best people maybe in the whole country looking at that. We're looking at California too, because California is worse. But, you know, if we find 50%, you know, look, they've been robbing and ripping off this country for many years, for decades, right? If we find 50% of what's happened, we have a balanced budget without cutting anybody. We have a balanced budget. And we'll find that Minnesota is very corrupt. California is very corrupt. A lot of states are very corrupt. Take a look at Minnesota. So we think it's at least 19.
So there's Trump. He's talking about it. They're saying it's at least $19 billion. David, what do you think the actual real estimate is?
So I believe that when the dust settles on this, we're going to find that the fraud is at least 30 billion, and it could go as high as 80 to 100 billion. And that is in Minnesota alone, because you have to include grants, NGOs, nonprofits, housing, SNAP, Feeding Our Future, all of these things. It's such a massive number that I don't know that we'll ever be able to get all of the money accounted for. But what I can say is that everybody who enabled this fraud is a traitor to the United States of America, and the stain of their treason will be on our country forever.
100%. And Trump brought up Ilhan Omar. How much do you think she's involved with the fraud?
Like I said in our second video, Ilhan Omar is the godmother of all this fraud, not just in Minnesota, but nationally. She helped put together this whole fraud network that we're now seeing exposed throughout the country. And we're seeing it in other countries as well. We're seeing it in Sweden, we're seeing it in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Denmark. And again, I go back to the fact that all of this fraud was constructed here in Minneapolis. They tested it out and then they expanded it out, not only nationally, but internationally. And now we're seeing the pushback from people who are saying, wait a minute, I've seen these daycares, I've seen this transportation fraud, they've seen it with their own eyes. And now people are starting to go out there and do their own investigation. And we see the violent reaction from these fraudsters once they're exposed, because obviously they've been living the high life without working. And here you have people who get up and go to work every day. They work hard, they're honest, they're hardworking, they're raising their family. And these people are spitting in their faces and laughing at them because they're getting millions of dollars without doing a single thing. And it's all because these politicians allowed it to happen.
And what's funny is we know these politicians have enabled it to happen because after months of this news coverage, they have literally came on TV and said, the fraud's very real. Mayor Fry said that on live TV. Tim Walz has said, this fraud thing happens in all 50 states. Like, they just openly admit to the fraud on television. They're acting like it's just something that we should have to deal with as tax-paying citizens, that we should have to deal with a portion of our taxes going towards the fraud. And when in reality, they know about the fraud and they're the ones who are controlling and enabling that fraud to happen. And by no means is that right for them to just say, yeah, we know fraud's happening, this fraud thing, when in reality, they could be the ones cracking down on it.
Well, not only that, but every time a fraud was committed, so every time a fraudulent payment was issued or a fraudulent payment was accepted, we have millions of such cases. Every one of those is a felony. And the people of America are tired of these people getting away with this fraud and just saying, okay, my bad, yeah, there was fraud, and go on to the next thing. They want people to be arrested, handcuffed, brought in front of a judge, and put in prison for what they've done. Prison.
And so far, from what you've seen and what you've heard, do you think any of them will be put in prison?
I'm hopeful, but when I help a guy here in Minneapolis get convicted of $7.2 million of fraud, a unanimous jury verdict finding him guilty, and the judge, Sarah West, overturns the verdict, and that guy's out walking free now and still collecting money from the government. I have to collect myself and say, look, justice and truth are going to win out, because that is such a punch in the gut when a judge does that. But I have to believe that at the end of the day, we're going to be successful in what we're doing, which is exposing the fraud and getting people sent to prison.
Yeah, I think people need to know about this because a lot of people about that, what you just talked about, the guy who got charged for $7.2 million. And then the jury found him guilty, but then somebody came in last minute and reversed it. He was literally found guilty. And let's actually watch this. It's about 3 minutes. It's it shows this let's see. Here it is. It shows what actually happened with this verdict, because it actually is crazy that they found this guy guilty of $7.2 million and they let him walk free.
A big reversal in a $7.2 million fraud case in Hennepin County. The judge has thrown out the jury's guilty verdict. This is a case Lou Raguse has been following since the beginning. The judge's actions could make it harder to prosecute state fraud cases in the future. Lou?
Julie, it's extremely rare for a judge to reverse a jury's verdict in a criminal case. Jurors I spoke to today told me it was not a difficult decision to find Abdi Fattah Youssef guilty in a Medicaid billing scheme, and they're surprised by this development.
At the August trial for Abdi Fattah Youssef, the jury heard evidence that he ran his home health care company, Promise Health, out of a mailbox at a Central Avenue address where multiple other home health care companies were supposedly located. Youssef and his wife, Lol Ahmed, were charged with stealing $7.2 million of taxpayer money through Medicaid overbilling in a personal care assistant, or PCA, scam. The couple allegedly spent tens of thousands of the fraud money on luxury items for themselves. Despite the jury swiftly convicting Youssef, Judge Sarah West last week decided they got it wrong.
It's reversing or overturning a jury's verdict.
Defense attorney Joe Tamburino, who's not affiliated with this case, reviewed the decision and analyzed it for KARE 11 News. He says Judge West ruled that the state's case relied heavily on circumstantial evidence and that she believed the state did not rule out other reasonable inferences.
That in fact, there could have been other reasonable theories other than guilt in this case. That's what it comes down to.
Despite the ruling, even Judge West wrote that she is troubled by the manner in which fraud was able to be perpetuated at Promise Health.
I was stunned.
State Representative Kristen Robbins, chair of the House Fraud Prevention and State Oversight Committee, says she's now reviewing if any state laws need to be tightened.
We want to strengthen state law so that we can get prosecutions out of these cases, because clearly a jury thought he was guilty.
Jurors in the case can't believe the decision.
I am shocked. I'm shocked based off of all of the evidence that was presented to us and the obvious guilt that we saw based off of the said evidence. It was not a difficult decision whatsoever. The deliberation took probably 4 hours at most. Based off of the state's evidence that was presented, I was beyond a reasonable doubt.
The attorney for Mr. Youssef, Ian Burrell, sent me a statement today that says, in part, Judge West's ruling affirms what we have maintained from the beginning, that our client, Mr. Youssef, was wrongfully accused and did not commit fraud or racketeering. The Attorney General's office filed an appeal this afternoon, so the Minnesota Court of Appeals will take a second look at this decision. Julie.
So, Lou, did Mr. Tamburino, did he have any kind of emotional reaction? And this is pretty stunning. This does not happen.
Yeah, he leaned towards the idea that this was kind of a one-off and that it would have a good chance at appeal. But the worry is that there's so many other cases just like it, where somebody's in the exact same position as Mr. Youssef, but is charged with fraud. And if the judge can determine that maybe they didn't know that the fraud was going on underneath them in the case, then other judges could throw it out just like this one.
All right. Do you know how quickly
So there you have it right there. Man who's found guilty by jury just got overturned. $7.2 million. And how many more cases like that do you think are in Minnesota where there's one individual who's been caught for $3 million, $1 million of fraud?
Well, I think there are a lot of cases that are being worked on right now, and that is such a disgusting reversal by Judge West. And that's what goes back to what I'm saying, that the heart of this fraud is here in Minneapolis, that a guy can get off a unanimous jury verdict. I helped put that guy behind bars. That was my work to find that was a fraudulent healthcare company. And I said, it's a mailbox. There's nothing here but a mailbox. And I had to keep sounding the alarm. So finally something got done. It was so egregious and so bad, but there are hundreds of those same companies out there that we've been exposing. Look at the transportation companies, Nick. We couldn't even find one. They didn't exist. One was a mailbox. The other one's a liquor store. I mean, what is that? Right? It's exactly the same fraud. And so we have to make sure that these people are prosecuted and that they're put in prison. And so Keith Ellison, the Attorney General, he filed an appeal. Hey, Keith Ellison is a proponent of the fraud. He was in on this on the ground level. We have that recording where he was meeting with the fraudsters saying, if you need any help, contact my office directly.
And what's Keith Ellison's involvement with all this?
So Keith Ellison.
And explain to people who he is.
Keith Ellison is originally from Detroit. He's not from Minnesota. He's the Attorney General of Minnesota. There's a recording of him meeting with people who were involved in the fraud, and he told them on that recording, look, if you need assistance, if you need help, reach out to my office directly. So he's the one who's going to appeal a fraud conviction. He's going to do the appeal. What do you think's going to happen? He's going to find a way to screw up the appeal. That guy's going to walk free, and they're never going to recover a penny of that $7.2 million. It's sad. It's shameful. It's shocking. It's disgusting.
Here, I have the audio right here. I'm working quick on trying to get all the info for everybody. Let's see.
Defendants accountable. He says this audio. Let's just go fight these people. Proves otherwise.
Wouldn't it be easier to just say?
Duck's computer.
Actually, that wasn't it. But yeah, there's proof of him being on audio. There's all this proof right here. Facing scrutiny right here. but I'll try to find another clip of that. But yeah, so it seems like between Ilhan Omar, Tim Waltz, Keith Ellison, it's all just been coordinated as far as enabling this fraud to happen. And one thing that me and you talked about a lot was something that most people didn't even really know about was the interpreter services and how the transportation companies are all working in on this. And how did you learn about the interpreter services and the transportation companies, David?
So I started to see these transportation vans, and it was always a Dodge Caravan driving around. There was always a Somali driver, and they'd have a company name on the side and then like a number on the back, like 14 or 28 or 65. But there was never a passenger in any of the vehicles. I said, well, you don't have your phone number on there? I mean, it was just so odd. And it was always a Somali driver. So I started following some of them. And all they ever went to was Costco, Sam's Club, Walmart, loaded up a grocery cart, filled it up, and went back home. They never transported anybody to a clinic, to a doctor's appointment, to an autism center. They never did any of that. And I said, well, what are they? I mean, why? And they were all over the place. There's another one, there's another one, there's another one. So I started to do the research, and I found there are more than 800 Somali-owned NEMT companies in Minnesota. I said, who are they transporting? What are they doing? And then we found out, of course, that the whole thing is fraud. It's all part of the network, and the transportation is the hub of the wheel of the fraud. Autism centers is a spoke, the child care is a spoke, because all those people have to supposedly be transported. So all those transportation companies are fraudulently billing Medicaid for all these trips that never existed. And then I found out through a contact down in Faribault, Minnesota, that they were saying that they're running people up from Faribault to the Twin Cities. For what? They don't have a chiropractor in Faribault. It was all fraudulent. And it just kept spreading, and the tentacles went everywhere.
They found a man guilty. A man actually pled guilty here to the exact fraud that we're talking about.
The top defendant in the fraud scheme dubbed Pit Stop 66 by the Minnesota Attorney General's office has pleaded guilty. 44-year-old Nazro Takal has admitted her role in recruiting more than 300 Somali American residents of Faribault to schedule phony rides to the Twin Cities for medical services in order to scam taxpayer reimbursement money to the tune of more than $1 million. Of that fraud total amount, Takal defrauded nearly $39,000 in phony interpreter services that she claimed to provide. Pit Stop 66 is probably the most complicated fraud scheme the Attorney General's office has prosecuted over the last several years. The scammers figured out that Faribault is about 60 miles from the Twin Cities, close to the maximum distance for medical transportation services to be reimbursed at the maximum rate. The total alleged fraud for Pit Stop 66 is $2.6 million. 8 people have been charged. Of those, 4 have now been convicted, including Takal, who will be sentenced in October. I'm Lou Bragoose. Follow.
David, it is pretty amazing how you were spot on about all this.
Yeah, I uncovered all of this. I've been working on this for years, and I've been working with Lou Bragoose on and off on this issue. And what was really frustrating was I was contacting elected officials in Washington, D.C., saying this fraud is out of control in Minnesota. Nobody here will do anything. We need the federal government to come in. We need your help to come in here and tell these people they're using federal money. So that transportation money, that's Medicaid dollars, which is a blend of federal and state money. And I kept telling them, you've got to get the federal government to come in here and drop the hammer on these people and tell them they're committing felonies. Every time they issue a payment to a fraudulent company, it's a felony. And it's hundreds and thousands and hundreds of and millions of payments. And I just said, this has to stop. And so I'm glad that we finally made some headway and we got some of these convictions, but that's how long I've been working on this and how enormous this problem is, that to even get a conviction, it took this much work and this much research. And now we're finding it's throughout the entire country. And so people have to wake up, and they are now finally, and they have to keep pushing. They have to just drive their elected officials crazy with phone calls and emails saying, stop the fraud, stop the fraud.
Yeah, because this is not just a Minnesota problem. We know it's in all 50 states, and I even have a video coming out from California very, very soon. A lot of people are wondering about that in the chat about some of the fraud that was taking place, that is currently taking place, and that video will be coming out in the coming days. But we know that the fraud in places like California bad. I've heard Colorado's bad. I've heard Ohio's bad. Maine's bad. Seattle or Washington in general is bad. And so we know that this fraud's been happening. And something that's interesting, something that I thought was really cool about our videos right after we posted the video, the HHS froze $185 million of federal funding to Minnesota, for instance. And then they also paused it to some of the other states as well. But what happened, instead of these states proving any form of being a legitimate business, they actually are now actively suing the HHS because they know that they have been caught in this fraud, and now they're trying to like extend their time for them to actually have to prove that they're legitimate business. And what worries me is that when they, for instance, these states are going to sue, now it's going to give them an extra layer to try to uncover and try to not to uncover the fraud, but to try to cover the fraud actually by creating false documentations. And we know that that's been happening for years in Minnesota. It just came out the other day that they have been doing all this false documentation for a large portion of that for Medicare, I believe, and for healthcare inside of one of the programs inside of Minnesota. But what worries me is that almost because we caught them so red-handed that now these other states and these other programs are just gonna have all this time to make all these fake documentations. Does that worry you at all?
Well, no doubt they're doing that. And you saw that Judy Randall, the legislative auditor for the state of Minnesota, said that she has evidence that employees of the Minnesota Department of Human Services were backdating forms, falsifying documentation, and she's never seen that in 27 years. You got the tape?
Yeah, right here.
Against fraud. The performance audit shows the Behavioral Health Administration sent millions of dollars out the door in grants without making proper checks into who was receiving them. And that is not even the most jaw-dropping finding.
And so this is criminal behavior by state employees. And every time they do it, it's a felony.
Yeah, so right here alone, there should be arrests that are made from these people that are literally committing felonies.
Julie, according to the nonpartisan legislative auditor, this is another case of mismanagement of taxpayer money. But perhaps the most explosive revelation is that managers within DHS, the Department of Human Services, tried to cover their tracks by backdating and creating new documents.
But I do want to talk about what a serious issue this is and how it is, frankly, unacceptable.
Another sobering report by the Office of the Legislative Auditor, this one concerning the Behavioral Health Administration within the Department of Human Services, which issues grants to providers treating mental health and drug and alcohol addiction, hundreds of millions of dollars each year. The audit found them issuing grants to applicants without a bidding process.
So what we saw is that there was multiple entities that could have been eligible, and they chose not to provide a justification for why they were picking those.
This report is quite stunning.
One outrageous example, the auditors found a grantee that was paid $672,000 for 1 month of work without any info on what they do. And the audit says the grant manager who paid it then left DHS a couple days later and became a paid consultant for that company.
To me, that's criminal.
Auditor Judy Randall says she was most shocked that during the audit, multiple DHS managers backdated or created new documents to try to cover their tracks.
Frankly, in the 27 plus years I've been with OLA, I have never seen this before. I will say we have had suspicions periodically, but we have never been able to prove it, to document it, and we did in this case, and it's very troubling.
Temporary DHS Commissioner Shireen Gandhi's response.
I was shocked to hear this information in the exit conference, and it is absolutely unacceptable that any staff would provide anything other than accurate representation of the work done to an auditor.
Now, there were a lot of questions from lawmakers about whether this audit should result in criminal investigations. So we'll see what comes from that. The Office of the Legislative Auditor provides recommendations both to the department and to lawmakers in case law changes are needed. Just one more time of what the auditor said regarding.
It's amazing that it's like a question whether or not somebody will be in trouble for this. How's that even a question, or how does that even make sense that it's up in the air if someone's going to get charged for that? Oh, can you hear me, David? Can you hear me, David? I can hear David. What's going on, everybody? Is something wrong with my mic? There, can you hear me, David? David, I can't hear anything he's saying. But
all right, so they're having technical issues there. We are going to briefly head over to, let's see what's going on here. Not fully live yet. Live now.
Back to Tusi TV. This is your global news channel. I'm Maya Tusi, and this is a dark day for Canada. This is a dark day, not just because we've had yet another attack in the Western world, but a dark day because of the way the mainstream media has reacted and establishment. Apparently, we had a gun person, yes, you heard it right, a gun person doing a mass shooting. An isolated incident. Now we're going to give you guys the actual facts, the reality on the ground and what exactly happened and how the media are gaslighting the global population and of course the lovely Canadians to think that apparently a woman carried out this attack. Now let's go through the details first, and I'm going to get your reaction in the live chat and of course in the comment section. This happened last night in Tumbler Ridge, a small, tiny place with a population of around 2,000 people, not too far from Vancouver. And unfortunately, the positive part of that was that the police did manage to respond within 2 minutes, unlike other places like the United Kingdom. And then obviously, when the political establishment from the political left responded with Canada is always safe because we have gun laws. Okay, how can you stop criminals, especially psychotic criminals? Now, the details. The mass shooting happened in 2 locations. One was at the Tumbler Ridge Secondary School, but also at a residence, at a home not too far from the school in the British Columbia at around 1:20 p.m. local time. The number of casualties in total when it comes to the house and the school is now at 10. That includes the attacker himself, the shooter. So we had 7 victims at the school. We had 2 victims inside a house and the shooter himself. We also have over 27 people, at least, who have been injured, some of them seriously, which, of course, we will get some more information later on in terms of the well-being. But the identity of the attacker at Tumbler Ridge. We can now confirm, and even CBS eventually decided to confirm over the last few minutes, that Jesse Strang was the shooter. The media, the first few minutes, they called him Jess Strang because Jesse didn't know what gender he was, apparently. Of course, Jesse Strang was a biological male, but he started to refer himself as a girl in 2023. He was raised in a family that apparently loved hunting and began learn how to shoot rifles when he was a young child. And the family's residence did have many guns, but that is not really the reason that Jesse obviously carried out the attack. The media have been digging deep into the family's background to basically imply that the reason that the shooting happened was because his family loved hunting and his family had guns. Many families love hunting and many families have guns legally, and they don't do this. Now, if somebody doesn't even know what gender they are, well, what can you expect from them to understand right or wrong, to understand the realities of this world? Now, there are Facebook posts from his mother indicating that he may have struggled with behavioral issues, including violent tendencies, from a very young age. Now, he may have also been on medication, but there wasn't much help by people around him to at least keep everybody else safe. If you know that somebody has behavioral issues, it's probably best to address it very, very quickly. Now let's go to the video we had from them just shortly after the attack obviously happened, when the police managed to respond within 2 minutes, and they went into the school, and obviously the whole school was in lockdown for a while, and nobody could go in, nobody could come out, and eventually they evacuated the students, obviously with their hands raised. Let's go. Now this was also just after... Is it daughter? It was just after Jesse Strang, after obviously he shot the second group of people that was a school, the 7 people, he then turned the gun to himself and he killed himself.
Okay, awesome.
Now, luckily everybody else was safe. Berta says, thanks for covering this. The mainstream media here is plain dumb. Oh, I'm gonna talk to you about the Canadian liberal media, by the way. Just give it a minute. It's been fascinating. Yeah. This is Canada, under the deranged liberals, where the shooter is more protected than the victim. That tends to happen these days, unfortunately, under any sort of authority that is controlled by the liberal left. Now, at first, the media were apparently a little bit confused because they were like, oh, well, it seems like the shooter is a woman. They almost sounded excited that apparently, at first, they thought that the shooter was a woman, right? Because this alert came out, emergency alert. Police initiated public alert, Tumbler Ridge and surrounding area, active shooter alert issued by Tumbler Ridge RCMP. Those in Tumbler Ridge area are asked to stay inside and shelter in place. Lock your doors and refrain from leaving your home or business at this time. All others need to avoid the area and follow police directions. Suspect described as female in a dress. Well, that's good to know. With brown hair, shelter in place, report anything suspicious to the police, do not attend school unless directed, do not approach. Now, I think people should have started reporting suspicious nonsense, including a woman in a dress, apparently. Well, it was confirmed after this came out initially. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna. I'm from Tumbler. I moved here a few months ago, and I'm going to say the biggest tragedy that I have ever seen in my life. This young man dressed up as a girl killed his mum, kid brother and sister, then decided he was going to go to the high school to make a scene. This is such a tragedy, and I hope every parent learns from this tragedy. And I give my prayers to all families that were in the school and to the parents. Didn't stop here, because CBC, state-controlled CBC, couldn't even control themselves without making this political against their own opponents, including the United States of America. Obviously, if there's a shooting in Tumbler Ridge, you have to make it about America, right? That is usually, that's the custom apparently these days by the media. They had to bring up politics and how, oh yeah, we just had a shooting in Canada, but at least we're not America because America has shootings. Ooh. And then they have the audacity to say, well, when it happens in America, when it happens there, it becomes political. I'm not even kidding. Watch this.
The people involved directly and indirectly.
Yeah, you know, I think about the United States where, first of all, they have a lot of school shootings. I mean, if you look proportionally at the fact they have 10 times the population that we do, they still have way more than 10 times the number of school shootings. But very quickly after each of those shootings, it devolves into partisan politics. I don't see that happening here. I don't. But you tell me. In terms of how do you see the political reaction to this unfolding?
I mean, this is just fascinating. But it's not just CBC, because I'll show you about the print media as well, and not just in Canada, but in the US and in the United Kingdom, how they are responding to this. But before we do that, let's quickly go to the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, and see his reaction.
Parents, grandparents, sisters, brothers in Tumbler Ridge.
All right, we watched this already. This is essentially just a replay at this point. But yeah, the mainstream media is doing everything right now to hide what exactly happened. But in other news, apparently the U.S. House of Commons or House of Representatives are going to vote. Congress is going to vote on the tariffs, I believe. The tariffs on Canada, that is. So we will see what happens with that today, if not maybe tomorrow. And we have roughly a half hour till question period begins and the House of Commons in Canada opens. We will get back into this thing here. I don't want to hear Mark Carney again. I've already heard him, so.
Said, my wife and I were profoundly shocked and saddened to learn of the most dreadful attack at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School in British Columbia. We can only express our deepest possible sympathy to the families who are grieving the unimaginable loss of their loved ones and those still awaiting news from hospital. In such a closely connected town, every child's name will be known and every family will be a neighbor. We can only begin to imagine the appalling shadow that has now descended across Tumbler Ridge, and our hearts go out to all those whose lives have been so shattered by this senseless act of brutal violence. I very much wish to thank the town's police and staff at the health center for their courage as first responders, and all those across the British Columbia who have helped in every way that they have. In sending our most heartfelt condolences, my wife and I stand in solidarity with the people of Tumbler Ridge and all Canadians as they seek understanding, healing, and strength. Now, this is correct. Of course, when it comes to His Majesty, the King, that's his job. That's how you respond. The role of the crown is to be non-political. Just focus on the well-being. Just say the right things. Just say the nice things. It is not the job of the politicians and the political leadership, including prime ministers, to speak like the crown. But unfortunately, we have a bunch of robotic clowns as our politicians who essentially can't speak like normal people. They can't say, I am absolutely furious. We have to find out this epidemic of violent criminals who are psychotic, who don't even know their own gender. You are the political person. You're not the father of the country, Mark Carney. Your job is to get to the bottom of crises. Because people, obviously not everybody in Canada, because of the voting system, your party managed to get more seats, so you are now Prime Minister. You are their representative. Your job is not there to be some sort of a non-political unifying father figure. That's the job of King Charles, not yours. You need to be political. You need to get to the bottom of this. But of course, Mark Carney is not going to address the real problems. They're not going to do that. Why would these people do that? The left-wing liberals. Going back to the media, it wasn't just about CBC. It's also about print media, including in the US and in the United Kingdom. New York Post. Gun person in a dress behind Canada's deadliest school shooting in decades. Horrified Tumbler Ridge students reveal. Gun person in a dress. The Telegraph in London. Gun person in dress kills 9 in school shooting. Gun person. When did that even become a word? Why is that even a thing? Why gun person? Are you really afraid that you might just about be politically incorrect and offend the dead suspect, well, the attacker, who thought he was a girl? You are trying to be politically correct in case his corpse gets offended, wakes up and say, whoa, 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 whoa. You guys are reporting my mass shooting. Did you just refer to me as a gunman? How dare you? I'm a gun person. Only in Canada, this level of this attitude is spread around. Now it's reaching print media in the UK and in the US because they don't want to offend the liberals in Canada. And obviously the left-wingers in the US and the UK as well. But this is primarily to ensure that there is no real backlash, because otherwise everybody's going to get cancelled. Man up. And I do mean it. Whether you're a man or a woman, man up. Carter says, what else is new about the mainstream media, particularly those in Canada? Oh, Canada. King Charles remained silent while innocent Brits were put in prison. Richard says, the range woke male murder a bunch of people. Carney is a woke male who allowed his daughter to be infected with wokeness. Yes.
True. Very true.
Yeah. Luke says, this is what happens when alphabets come out of the closet. Guess who let them out of the closet? The effing left. Yep. Okay. Now, so we're just getting some breaking news from the Islamic Republic as well, which will bring you guys there shortly after this. Yeah, and it says another trans shooter, no, in Canada no less, thought they had taken their guns away. Yeah. Apparently that fixed everything, right? But now, as I said, the narrative from the media has been over the last few hours to try to find a way to blame it on objects. So they are saying, as I mentioned, the family of the attacker, who've also been damaged by this, their family loved hunting and they owned a lot of legal guns. They are implying very subtly that that's why the attack happened. It's like when in Europe, when terrorists, jihadis, drive cars into crowds. In Europe, the media says car rammed into the crowd. Car. Just random cars. Cars get angry and they go rogue and suddenly they just drive themselves into crowds. Yeah, blame the cars. Laura says, this is what happens when you have liberals in government. So what happens, Laura is correct, but what happens, which is even worse, is Of course, crime continues regardless of who is in government. Of course, attacks will happen anyway. It's about what you do afterwards. It's about how you react to it and how you will try to prevent it. The problem is when the political left are in charge, the attacks will continue anyway. The same pattern will continue. And you have a situation where you're not even addressing the basic problems, let alone the root cause. So in this case, for example, when you have a lot of people who are dealing with psychotic issues and there are people around them who are aware, and yet there is nothing that has been done about it. Now there has to be mechanism being created when it comes to the education system, when it comes to the cultural institutions, local authorities, local governments, to be able to take charge, especially when they are essentially underage. They are officially children, right? When they are saying that his friends and relatives and family were aware that he had some behavioral issues, okay, this is where somebody needs to step in to prevent it. This is not a surprise. It's happened many times. Throughout history, there are psychotic people who do crazy stuff.
Yeah, there's a severe amount of mental illness in this country, and sadly they won't do anything about it. They won't address the root cause, like I said at the beginning of the stream. But we're gonna head over to Rebel News here to talk about the exact same thing.
Rebel Roundup. I'm your host, she permitting. We'll try to keep the show to an hour today. We did start late, but we just wanted to make sure that we had the show prepped properly and all of our facts straight and our guests lined up today. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can leave a super chat. That's their paid chat over there, or their paid comment if you missed the live version of the show is called a super thanks. So let's bring on our guests. Besides my beloved real life best friend, Lisa Moreau, we've got Chris Scott of the Whistle Stop Cafe. He's also an independence activist here in Alberta and someone who paid a high cost for fighting against government overreach. And then we have Cosmin Jurja. He's the managing editor over at True North, Juno, and he broke this story after he put his children to bed last night. He worked to find out the truth about what had happened to other people's children in Tumbler Ridge. And most of what we know that has been confirmed about the shooter was discovered by Cosmin. So Cosmin, I'm going to let you take the lead here. Tell us everything that you know so far about what happened in Tumbler Ridge. How many people are hurt? How many people are deceased? And what we know about the shooter.
Right. So it was yesterday afternoon that an alert, a active shooter warning, went out to communities affected, including Tumbler Ridge, but also surrounding areas. And I caught wind of that because I got an email flagged by the local MLA, Lauren Dorkson, who put out a statement on the unfolding situation, telling everybody to shelter in place and listen to police instructions. So when I saw that, I immediately started looking into this. Now, it took several hours for the RCMP to report casualties. They reported that number to be 10 dead, including the shooter. A number of these casualties were discovered within the Tumbler Ridge Secondary School, where the shooting took place. I believe several dozen other people were also injured and sent to the hospital. Two individuals, including a young girl, were taken by a helicopter ambulance to the Vancouver General Hospital. And two other individuals were found deceased at a home linked to this shooting. Now, originally, when the active shooter alert went out and was blasted to local phones and media across that region, the suspect was described as a female wearing a dress with brown hair. And I believe I'm quoting that. Now, if you know anything about BC, I live on Vancouver Island. Here it's quite warm. It was about 10 degrees and sunny yesterday. So somebody in a dress would be, possible. But Tumbler Ridge is located quite far up north, closer to Alberta, and it was about -1 degrees or around 0 degrees Celsius there. So a lot of questions started to emerge about how the police described the suspect. Now, anybody who was paying attention to this unfold saw several names and potential IDs of the suspect circulate on social media. None of these were confirmed by the police. The police were pretty tight-lipped about the identity of the suspect. One name, Jesse Strang, which seemed to be the most plausible match because locals identified one of the victims, Jennifer Strang, as one of the deceased discovered at the residence in Tumbler Ridge. Now, it was based on that information circulating around that I reached out to relatives, close family relatives of Jesse. I reached out to his grandparents, aunts and uncles. And it was his uncle, Russell, who pretty much almost immediately responded to me. And I asked him some pretty straightforward questions because I was really out to just verify the information we were seeing. The first question I asked Russell was, is Jesse the shooter? And Russell said yes. And then I sought to verify, are you Jennifer Strang's brother? And are you Jesse's uncle? And he said yes. Now, I also asked him whether there were any signs leading up to this incident, to this horrible shooting, that may have indicated Jesse would do something like this. He didn't answer that question, and I think that's understandable. But then I followed up by asking, did Jesse identify as transgender or somebody who represents as a different gender? And he said, yes, Jesse was transgender. So when we got the confirmation from his uncle, that is essentially, we were pretty much settled on the fact that this is the suspect. This is the individual who went on this shooting rampage. Now, that is also being broken by CTV, as I just learned before this show started. So the mainstream media has, at least some of them are reporting the suspect's name as well.
So catching up to your work, and you did incredible work last night. I mean, you chased down the family for confirmation, which is what hadn't been done yet. We've got a clip actually of the RCMP spokesperson doing exactly what you referred to, saying that it was a gun person, which was my first red flag, and saying that it was a woman in a dress. Any woman who participates in the firearms sports knows that you wear pants unless it's a costume for you, which was sort of tipped my curiosity here. But this is what was released to the public about what happened.
That includes the deceased gun person.
Okay. And then separately, do you know the gun person's relationship to the...
That includes the deceased gun person.
Okay, so that doesn't have the whole thing. We don't have the whole clip there, just saying gun person, but described as a woman in a dress. I'm going to get reaction from Lise and then Chris to what happened in Tumbler Ridge just before we get into more details, because we've got a few more. We've got Drea, who reached out to families whose children were inside the school about the horrors there. And then a clip from Cosman about CBC's reaction to this. Somehow they shoehorned Trump into it with their derangement. But Lise, you go first.
Well, anybody that's referring to this as a female or a gun person or a person in a dress is beclowning themselves publicly and showing themselves to be completely ideologically captured and on the wrong side of this. Because at the heart of what this actually is an absolutely predictable act of trans madness. That's what happened here. Like, are none of the people that are begging for thoughts and prayers going to ask the question, what could have possibly radicalized this person?
Yep.
What could have possibly radicalized this person? Nobody's gonna talk about that yet. Are we ready to talk about that yet, Canada? Because it took a tragedy to acknowledge the truth in this matter. People have been. This is what we get for protecting transgenderism in our human rights codes. This is what we get for silencing gender critics who said that all of the warning flags are there. This is going to end in disaster. So after destroying families for 10 years, this is what we've got.
Do you know,
This now here.
I was speaking to somebody this morning about this, and frankly, as morbid as it sounds, I'm surprised we haven't had more of this, given how far we are down the gender madness. We see these sorts of shootings in the United States more frequently by the same cast of characters. But I think we are more radicalized as a society down the gender madness rabbit hole. I mean, we saw images of that school with like police walking into the school post shooting event, and you can see the rainbow flags on the side of the school. Maybe we have that, Olivia, if we can bring it up. And we'll just go to Chris here and get Chris's reaction while you find that.
My reaction? We live in a very fast-paced world right now, and I find my reaction to these things goes really quickly. The first thing, of course, is like just that lump in your throat and thinking about how the people that are left behind feel. Like even talking about it it's difficult because I've got a lot of family, and I've got part of my family that some of them are in school, and I just think about how that would feel to have that phone call one day. And then, we don't really get much time to grieve because social media explodes, and things start being talked about. But the second thing I felt almost immediately was that suspicion of what we knew. Like, we hear about these things and we know what the outcome is going to be. We know what the details are going to look like. And in this case, it was no different. Then I feel really angry, like really angry that people like me, and I'm guilty of this too, have spent so much time worrying about their public, persona or how people are going to react to what they say, that we don't want to talk about the truth. And we live in a world now where the truth is hiding naked in the well, and the lie is running around in the truth's clothes, and people don't want to talk about it because they're so damn scared,
Yeah.
And it's
There's one video of the cop
sorry.
walking in, and you can sort of, when they pan, you can see the rainbow flags in the school. So this was a very affirming school. So it's almost like being an affirming place doesn't help. It's almost like there's something else at play that we're not supposed to talk about.
Well, what are they affirming, Sheila?
Yeah.
What is it that we're supposed to affirm these days? Are we supposed to affirm the departure from reality into a world where the stuff is
There
just
it is.
normal?
Oh, do you know what
Everyone
that
is
flag?
welcome here.
Do you know what that flag on schools in Canada means now? Danger. Danger.
Let's go to some of the CBC reaction to this, and Billboard Chris has done some digging on this. So we've got it's from CBC Watcher. Now, I think CBC is finally catching up to the news that Cosman broke, but CBC Watcher, they say, we know at CBC News that there are people online who are talking about the possible suspect and other details. I wonder why. It's almost like the news should report that sort of stuff. Why don't we show that clip, please?
Also, a note on our coverage of this story today. We know at CBC News that there are people online who are talking about the possible suspect and other details surrounding this case, but this information has not been confirmed to us by either sources or law enforcement, and we want to stick to confirmed details only as we continue to cover this story. And as we learn more, we will certainly bring all of the confirmed information to you. Also, a note on our coverage of this story.
They could have been reaching out to the family like Cosman did, but that would have
Exactly.
revealed some inconvenient facts.
The weight and the funding of the CBC couldn't do what Cosman did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will add to that, like it's the job of media, of journalists to verify information.
Right.
It's not their job to wait for verified information and for
Fantastic point. So well said.
the
Law
government to
enforcement.
tell them, right?
From
And
law enforcement.
so
Why would they wait to hear from law enforcement if they had other avenues? Law enforcement
exactly,
just
and
told us
the
it was a gun person. So that this is we're just in a circle jerk of non-verifiable details that nobody can make sense of.
yeah, absolutely. And the RCMP is a primary source. They're the first responders, right? But they also have to consider and deal with investigation, right?
Mhm.
And that limits their ability to disclose information.
Sure.
So, in terms of being a reliable source of information, they are a primary source, but they're not the most reliable source, right? There are other
Right.
primary sources in
Right.
incidents like this. There are eyewitnesses, there are family members, there are
Hmm.
friends of the shooter. So for them to suggest that, oh, we can't report because the law enforcement isn't telling us who the suspect is really a discredit to their own what they see their job as being. They see their job as being, repeating government information rather
Yes.
than looking for the
Well, that is
information
their
themselves,
job. Yeah.
informing the public.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh.
There's an interesting distinction there between the two different types of media, like the state-funded media and the ones that believe in this ideology that leads to these situations. It's almost like they're just panicking and doing everything they can to prevent the information from getting out there because
Yes.
it's going to damage it's going to damage what they've been promoting. And
The
then there's the other
narrative.
side, the ones that have been screaming from the rooftops, like Billboard Chris and most of the the new media, not alternative but new media. They've been saying this is dangerous and we gotta stop this. And so you see that different reaction. One is trying to specifically suppress the information and not get people talking about it, and the other side is like it's the complete opposite, and that's where we are today. The divide there is just, I mean, it's not even a divide; it's an impenetrable wall, right?
Right. Yeah,
Here's the other thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
If I may jump in, the other
Please.
thing is I wanted to say, like, I didn't do anything special. I literally just messaged a few people. One of them happened to get back to me. I fully expected none of them would get back to me, but Russell did in this case, Jesse's uncle. And I had a brief conversation confirming the facts that we already knew. So to suggest that the media can't do such a simple task as reaching out to the people directly affected and who knew the suspect is outrageous. And it's as you mentioned earlier, like we're funding this organization to the tune of what, $1.4 billion dollars a year, and somehow they can't do this basic task.
Well, they don't want that.
Well, they're garbage. That's what it really comes down to. They're just a trash organization. We have Pam Bondi, I guess, testifying over the Epstein stuff.
Outcomes and some great success stories. I know you, as Florida's Attorney General, had a tremendous amount of leadership in our state, trying to make sure we were taking care of children, also the elderly, protecting them from fraud, ending drug trafficking. Tell us a little bit about some of those departments within DOJ.
Yeah, when you talked about Project Safe Neighborhoods, we've done a lot of that in Florida when I was state AG, and actually back when I was a state prosecutor prior to being Attorney General. That is so important. I feel like what we've been doing in DC too, with the Take Back DC and Make DC Safe Again, is similar to that. Going into the neighborhoods, working with the community, seeing law enforcement officers out there playing basketball with kids who live in the neighborhood. It's pretty remarkable what we've seen firsthand. Citizens in Memphis saying that they appreciate, they can walk outdoors now and they feel safe. People coming up thanking law enforcement and working hand in hand with them. We will continue all of these programs and working jointly with both sides of the aisle to keep our families safe.
Thank you for that, Madam Attorney General. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from Tennessee is recognized.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce for the record a letter to Director Gabbard from Mr. Warner and and Mr. Himes, and a letter of response from her to them about who invited her to Atlanta, and a copy of the search warrant. And I'd also like to just make clear for the record, the reason people in Memphis weren't going out was because the ice was on the ground and we were afraid we'd fall. But other than that, we go out all the time.
Gentlemen, without objection, there's unanimous consent. The gentlelady from Vermont is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney General Bondi, according to your department, a child is sexually abused in the United States every 9 minutes, and the vast majority of survivors never get justice. And that's one of the reasons why I think the Epstein case has resonated so deeply with so many Americans. And the other reason, I think, is because it has revealed a two-tiered system of justice. And the powerful are protected, and the survivors rarely get any accountability. And the Epstein files contain evidence of a multi-decade international criminal conspiracy involving some of the wealthiest and the most powerful people in the world. There's evidence of financial crimes, political corruption, sex trafficking, and of course, horrible sexual abuse. And I want to remind everybody, this isn't a game. These are real people, people who have suffered, who are sitting here with us today, and they deserve answers, and they deserve accountability. And I'm here to try to get some for them. Now, I've seen some of the unredacted Epstein files, and obviously, as you know, President Trump's name is all over them, but so are the names of other senior Trump officials: Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce; John Phelan, the Secretary of the Navy; and Stephen Feinberg, the Deputy Secretary of Defense. These men were appointed by President Trump to senior positions in his administration. All of them have clear and confirmed ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Attorney General Bondi, yes or no, has the Justice Department asked Secretary Lutnick about his ties to Epstein?
Excuse me. Secretary Lutnick has addressed those ties himself.
I'm asking you, has the Justice Department specifically asked Secretary Lutnick about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein?
He has addressed those ties himself.
Has the DOJ asked Secretary Phelan about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein?
I don't know whether he has addressed those or not.
Has the Deputy Secretary Feinberg talked to the Department of Justice about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein? Yes or no? Has the Department of Justice talked to Deputy Secretary Feinberg about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein, which are clearly spelled out in the files? It's a very simple question. It's not a trick question. I'm just asking you.
Yeah, I'm stunned that you want to continue talking about.
Oh my gosh.
Epstein
Okay, I'm reclaiming my time. I'm asking you not a trick question, a simple question. Okay, so what is clear is we have evidence.
Do you know who Chris Malin is?
We have evidence that 3 senior officials within the Trump administration have ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And what I can
ties mean?
I can conclude from what you are saying that you have not talked to them.
What does ties mean?
I think Americans would be shocked to learn that you are not interested in talking with these officials who have ties to Jeffrey Epstein.
What does
across
ties
the
mean?
world,
Can you define that?
across the world,
Can you
prominent
define
men
ties?
who've been exposed in the files have resigned their jobs in disgrace, and that's a good first start. And that same
Disgrace is
standard,
not saying the word
this
Chris
same
Malin.
standard should apply here. And Americans want accountability.
Who is Chris Malin?
Was the president
he?
aware? Please stop talking. It is not your time to ask
was
questions. It is not your time. I'm reclaiming my time, Mr. Chair.
1 second.
Holy shit. It's getting heated.
Gentlelady from Vermont.
Was the president aware of Secretary Lutnick's ties to Epstein when he chose him to lead the Department of Commerce? Was he aware?
Chris Malin was a Border Patrol agent.
Okay, so I'm going to conclude that the president, in fact, did know about his ties because he was the next door neighbor.
Shame on you.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
You're
this
from
is
a tiny,
pathetic.
beautiful
This is
state.
pathetic, Mr.
Committee
Chair.
will be in order.
I am not asking trick questions here.
You
The
got your
American
5
people
minutes.
have a right to know the answers to this. These are senior officials in the Trump administration. This is not a game, Secretary.
I'm Attorney General.
My apologies, I couldn't tell. By 2008, we knew that Epstein was a convicted sexual abuser. And we now know that Lutnick went to Epstein's Island in 2012. How was that not a deal breaker for the president? And why aren't you asking questions of the Commerce Secretary about what he saw when he was at the island, which he lied about not ever going to? Why are you not asking these questions? And I see that my time is almost expired, so I will say this. Do the right thing, Attorney General. Meet with the survivors. They have been asking for a year. Meet with the survivors. Do the right thing. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized for 5 minutes.
May I have 20 seconds of his time?
So that'd be up to the gentleman, but.
Absolutely, Madam
Thank you. Thank you. I was curious if you, Congresswoman, asked Bill Clinton that. Didn't see one tweet, not one. I didn't see one tweet when Joe Biden was in office about Bill Clinton. Didn't ask Merrick Garland anything about Epstein, not once. When he was
weak sauce.
And also, I want the record to reflect that, you know, with this anti-Semitic culture right now, she voted against a resolution condemning.
Oh,
is
Jewish. I just want to be clear. Do you want to go there, Attorney General? Or do you want to go there? Are you serious? Talking about anti-Semitism to a woman who lost her grandfather in the Holocaust?
I reclaim my time.
Really?
The committee will be
It's
in
getting
order.
crazy.
Talk to Jared Wise about anti-Semitism.
Ranking member knows that.
Can I get like 30 seconds back, you know?
Yeah, I've been.
Ballant took
I think the
30 of
whole
mine.
committee knows. I've been very.
Bro, it's fake outrage. She's literally laughing. It's fake outrage.
Sure, everyone gets their 5 minutes in this.
What is going on here?
Sanctuary cities for a second, which limit the federal government's ability to enforce immigration law. They're kind of a new thing that Democrat jurisdictions are doing. They're in violation of federal law. During President Trump's first term, he rightly targeted sanctuary jurisdictions to try to force them.
Okay, so very briefly, I'm just going to throw this up because I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know if they're canceling question periods so they can do like a full statement with like a ceremony with a statement and everything from every party member or whatever they're going to do here because of what happened.
Ready to show you. Okay? I have both ready to show you. I don't know which one's going to happen first. Try something here. No, that's not it. Okay, so again,
this guy has no idea what he's showing. Absolutely no idea. They're not gonna do pressers out in the fucking hallway. They're all in here. Okay, so they're just singing the national anthem. We will come back to that. We will come back to that.
To cooperate with federal immigration law. Federal immigration law, mind you, that was voted on in 1996, most recently, in a bipartisan Congress, signed by a Democrat president. But they are in violation of that law. These states and jurisdictions feel entitled to certain grants, of course. Y'all are combating that. Do sanctuary policies, 7,000 criminal legal aliens since January 20th of last year that have been released into the public because New York is not honoring detainers requested by ICE. California, similarly, has released 4,500 criminal legal aliens. There are 33,000 under detainer in California alone. And of the people released, I think it's remarkable that those released in New York, 29 homicides, 2,500 assaults, almost 200 burglaries. These are people that are released into our community by these states that refuse to cooperate.
because we're just waiting.
Last August, Michael Jordan Castellano Fonseca, a criminal illegal alien with ties to Tren de Agua, shot 2 people in front of 5 children in the sanctuary state of Colorado. DHS lodged a detainer on him. He's awaiting trial, but the question is whether Colorado's sanctuary policies will prevent him from being removed.
All right, here we go.
Permitted to make a statement. And C, suite aux déclarations, la Chambre.
Following the statements, the House shall adjourn until tomorrow at 10 a.m. pursuant to Standing Order 24-1, provided that 1. The recorded divisions currently defer to the expiry of the time provided for oral questions today be deemed further deferred to the expiry of the time provided for oral questions at the next sitting of the House.
So
And
they are
two,
canceling it.
any standing joint, special and special joint committees, as well as their subcommittees, shall not be empowered to sit today. Thank you. All those opposed to the honorable ministers moving the motion will please say nay.
The terms of the motion. All those opposed to the motion will please say nay. Carried. Accordingly, I now invite all honourable members to stand to observe a moment of silence in memory of the victims of the tragic events in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. The House will now proceed to tributes in memory of the victims of tragic events in Tumbler Ridge. I now recognize the Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this morning, families in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, woke to a different world. Parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, began this day as their first day on earth without someone they loved dearly. What happened has left our nation in shock and all of us in mourning. 9 people killed, more than 25 others injured, some still in hospital fighting for their lives. The investigation is ongoing, and we must allow law enforcement the time and space to do their work accordingly. Mr. Speaker, as this House knows, Tumbler Ridge is a community of some 2,400 people nestled in the foothills of the Rockies. It is one of the youngest towns in the great province of British Columbia. It's carved out of the wilderness in the 1980s, built on the promise of the resource economy and by the determination of its residents. It's a town of miners, teachers, construction workers, families who have built their lives there, people who have always shown up for each other there. When wildfires raged, neighbors helped each other pack up and move out of harm's way. They checked in on seniors and those living alone. They made sure that no one was left behind. When the coal mine shut down, residents supported local businesses. They shared leads for jobs, and they lifted each other up. Mr. Speaker, Tumbler Ridge represents the very best of Canada, resilient, compassionate, and strong. Hier matin.
Yesterday morning, parents in Tumbler Ridge sent their children off to school, and some will never be able to hug their children again. These children and their teachers bore witness to unheard of cruelty. I want everyone to know this. Our entire country stands with you on behalf of all Canadians. I offer my prayers to the victims, to their families and friends, to all those who were injured, and to all those whose lives have been forever changed.
To express my profound gratitude to the first responders, the RCMP officers who entered immediately that school, not knowing what awaited them, to the paramedics and medical staff at the Tumbler Ridge Health Center, to the teachers and the school staff who acted with extraordinary courage to protect the children in their care. In the darkest of moments, they showed the best of our country. I have spoken with Premier Eby to express my condolences and those of the Government of Canada. The Minister of Public Safety has been coordinating the federal response and is en route to Tumbler Ridge with the Premier and Minister Robertson. The MP, Bob Zimmer, is already there. Our officials are in close contact with their provincial and local counterparts to ensure that the community receives every support that we can provide now and in the weeks and months ahead. Mr. Speaker, we have been here before. École Polytechnique in Montreal, the Islamic Cultural Center of Quebec City, La Loche, Saskatchewan, Humboldt, Saskatchewan, Potepic, Nova Scotia. Each time, it breaks us open. Each time, Canadians show who we are. Mr. Speaker, in the days ahead, there'll be important questions to ask, difficult conversations to have. We owe that to the victims and their families. But now, it's time for grieving and remembrance. Now is for the people of Tumbler Ridge and the Peace River region, for a community that is enduring the unimaginable. Il y a quelques instants, Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, a few moments ago, we held a moment of silence for the grieving community and families. For many of them today, silence is only too heavy. We will never be able to fully reconcile ourselves with the senseless violence that tore apart Tumbler Ridge yesterday. But we can seek comfort from each other, and we can take care of each other.
To those families who have lost loved ones, this House mourns with you. To those who are recovering from injuries, this House prays for you. To the students, the teachers, the parents, every resident of Tumbler Ridge, all of Canada stands with you. May the memories of those lost be a blessing. May this community, which has shown its resilience so many times before, once again find the strength to heal. And may this House prove worthy of what Tumbler Ridge has always been, by striving to make Canada a better, kinder, and safer place. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you, Prime Minister, for your eloquent words. I'm sure words that you never wanted to deliver on the floor of this chamber. As fathers, we both know the feeling of sending our kids to school, hoping that they'll play and perform, laugh and learn, but most of all, come home to us in our loving arms at night. Sure, there's the odd skinned knee or sore belly when they get back, but that's usually the worst of our concerns. Yesterday, as we were tucking our kids in, I got a terrible phone call from Bob Zimmer, the Member of Parliament, who represents Tumbler Ridge, telling me that a shooting had occurred, and though not details were not yet well known, it was going to be bad. And those details have come in. Children who should have been thinking about homework and hockey were instead thrown into terror, grief, and unbearable uncertainty. 9 lives were stolen, 25 injured, 9 families devastated, an entire community in grief. That community is the best of Canada, a community of miners and loggers, hard-working people, hardy, strong, the kind of people who fight their own battles but never hesitate to help a neighbor in need. They are the backbone of this nation. Behind every number is a name, a child, a friend, a teacher, a neighbor, a family member, each with a story. For as the rabbi said, each life is its own universe. As a father, I can only imagine the phone call or visit that brought the news, the panic, the helplessness, the heartache that followed. No parent should ever have to fear that their child will not return home from school. No parent should ever bury their own child. En tant que père,
As a father, I can only imagine the call or visit to announce the news, the panic, the helplessness, the grief that followed. No parent should ever have to fear for their child's life at school, and no parent should ever have to bury their own child.
families who've lost loved ones, there are no words that can comfort or verses that can console. All we have is the words of all members of this House that we are with you, and that in the memories you carry of your loved ones, they will live on in this world even after they have passed into the next one. To the young people who were in that school, I've had indirect accounts shared with me, and I can't even imagine what you witnessed or the horrors that to which you have borne witness. I cannot comfort you or heal those wounds other than to say that the whole nation wraps its arms around you. To the people of Tumbler Ridge, Canadians across the land are thinking of you. The world is thinking of you. We know that in your small, tight-knit community, grief spreads across families, workplaces, churches, and friend groups, and know that all of us stand with you. To the courageous police, paramedics, firefighters, and other first responders, to the staff who risk their lives to save their kids, thank you for your incredible courage. All of us owe you a permanent debt of gratitude. To the pastors, the priests, the clergy, the medical and the mental health professionals whose daunting task now is to bind up the wounds. May God be with you in your work. And on behalf of the official opposition, as I told the Prime Minister moments ago, we will be with you, with the provincial leaders, with local government, and we will do everything we can to support this community through this hardship. We all stand together. There is no partisanship on this day. And that includes the work that we give in support of our emergency first responders who will, of course, be traumatized, but will be carrying out continued efforts on behalf of the community. And to the RCMP, we will support you in your work as you gather up the facts and complete your investigation, and in good time, at the appropriate moment, make all the facts, indeed all the facts, known to Canadians. And we commit ourselves to being present for all those who have lost so much long after the limelight is gone, but while the grief remains. And so those who suffer today, we offer you our prayers, and for all those who do pray, I ask you to share a prayer with the wonderful people of this amazing town. As the great psalm said, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me, O Lord. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, today our thoughts are with the community of Tumbler Ridge in British Columbia. 9 children were torn away from the community and 25 more were injured. Our thoughts are with the victims of this nameless, senseless violence right in a secondary school. I hope you will allow me to make an exception today so that I can speak directly to the families and people in BC who have not all had a chance to learn French.
In the name of the Bloc Québécois and in my own, I would like to offer my deepest condolences to the families of the 9 children whose life was taken, to the 25 families awaiting and hoping for good news about their wounded children, and to the entire community of Tumbler Ridge.
On behalf of the Bloc Québécois, and here I presume I can speak for the entire Quebec nation, I offer my condolences to the families of the 9 victims and all our solidarity to the families of the 25 people injured and the community of Tumbler Ridge as a whole. Our hearts are with the families who have been impacted, with the parents who are living through the ultimate cruelty, the ultimate injustice, which nothing can prepare one for, and which, I suppose, changes one's life forever, having one's child torn away. Our hearts are also with the parents who are holding their breath as they wait for news about their children from the hospital, with those who are divided between relief that they could bring a living child home and deep empathy for the families who could not. With all the students at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School whose lives have just been changed forever, with the children who will always be asking why us, why them and not me, why here, why? Their whys will never get an answer. With all the people who are waiting in dread to learn the names of the victims, knowing that in a community of under 2,400 people, the victims will inevitably be known to them, grandchildren, neighbors, friends. An entire village has lost its children. I would like to thank the police, care personnel, support workers, and all of those who have gathered in Tumbler Ridge to support its people. Thank you for being there today, and thank you to those who will remain there long after the flags are raised and life has resumed its course. On behalf of the Bloc Québécois, I would also like to offer my hand to the government. It can count on our full cooperation if there is anything it needs to support those in mourning. Today, Quebec and British Columbia have never been closer. All Quebecers who have a child at school today are with British Columbia. All Quebecers today are remembering Polytechnique, the women who were taken from us, and the pain which will endure forever. Everyone is asking today, what kind of a world do we live in? Currently, we have not learned about a motive. But could there be any motive that would justify taking a weapon and aiming it at our children? Nothing will ever explain or justify such a horror. If you will allow it, Mr. Speaker, I will end on another note. Our hearts are with Tumbler Ridge, but they are also big enough to have room for another small community, Kitigan-Zibi, and the Anishinaabe Nation, which also lost 2 children today. 2 children whose lives were lost at the hands of their own father, who then proceeded to take his own. We would like to say to our brothers and sisters in the Anishinaabe Nation that they do not suffer alone. The Quebec Nation is with them. I'm sure it is the case for the Canadian Parliament as well. Mr. Speaker, today is a dark day. To get through this ordeal will require courage, fellowship, solidarity, and compassion. In great quantities and from all quarters. We will remember. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, we solemnly gather today in the shadow of a heartbreaking tragedy that has shaken our country. Our nation is in mourning. Notre pays.
Our nation is in mourning.
Yesterday, in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, 9 innocent lives were senselessly taken, and 25 people were injured in a horrific mass shooting. This violence unfolded at a school, a place meant to nurture and protect our children, deepening the shock and sorrow felt by all Canadians. Loved ones have been stolen, families have been shattered, and a small community will be changed forever. In a place where everyone knows one another, where neighbors are more like extended family, a loss like this reverberates through every home, every workplace, and every gathering. To the families who are mourning, we grieve with you. We stand behind you, and we hold you in our hearts. We know that no words can possibly fill the void you are experiencing. But we hope that you can feel the embrace of a nation that stands with you in your grief today, tomorrow, and in all the difficult days ahead. Aux familles.
To the families, we grieve with you, we stand behind you, and we hold you in our hearts. We know that no words can possibly fill the void you are experiencing. But we hope you can feel the embrace of a nation that stands with you in your grief, today, tomorrow, and in all the difficult days ahead.
Remember each of the victims, not as numbers in a headline, but as human beings whose lives were rich and meaningful. The light that they brought into this world and the potential they carried can never be replaced and will never be forgotten. To the injured, we send our deepest thoughts of healing and strength. To the students, friends, and teachers who suffered this assault, we are there for you. We express our profound gratitude to the educators who first faced this assault, the first responders who courageously rushed to the scene as it unfolded, and to all the healthcare workers who are caring for the injured. your humanity and professionalism in the face of trauma. Remind us of the quiet heroism you display in our communities every single day. We thank the many people of Tumbler Ridge and across the region who have rushed to offer support for one another in this heartbreaking moment. In times like these, the strength of a community is truly revealed. In the face of such senseless tragedy and pain, we feel anger, confusion, and despair. We ask ourselves, how can such violence happen in our communities, in this country? These questions matter, and they deserve honest, thoughtful consideration. And there will be a time to answer them, but that time is not today. Today is a day when we cherish the victims and care for their families. Today is a day when we collectively grieve, comfort, and hold each other just a little more tightly. And today is a day when a nation comes together in solidarity and love. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh God, is Elizabeth May gonna give a speech too?
For Saanich Gulf
Oh
Islands.
God.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank the Prime Minister for his wise and moving words. I also thank the opposition leader for saying what is hard to say aloud.
Parents to imagine what the community of Tumbler Ridge is going through. Merci aussi le chef de bloc.
I also thank the Bloc Québécois leader who made the important remark that we are now united together. I also thank the Bloc leader for marking the tragedy that the Anishinaabe Nation is undergoing, Miigwech. And I thank the leader of the New Democratic Party, who, like me, is a member for BC.
Politicians will try to find words. I'll try not to. I want to send my love to our dear friend, the Member of Parliament for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies. This is the kind of thing none of us want to have happen in Canada, but to have happen in a place like Tumbler Ridge, so small. Everyone knows everyone, and I know that the Member of Parliament knows everyone, and it is a time that our hearts are broken. Maintenant, nous sommes pas seulement une...
Now we are not just a nation, we are a united nation and a family.
Maintenant, nos cœurs sont brisés.
And now our hearts are broken.
Matthew 5:4, that blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. But that comfort may feel far, far away right now if you're in Tumbler Ridge. Know wherever you are that we're praying for the injured, the 12-year-old little girl fighting for her life in hospital. We will be with you this day, yes, and whether believers or not, we are all one in the human family, and we hold you all close. And if there's ever any opportunity that we can, as individual members of Parliament, do anything to alleviate the pain and the suffering and the grief of the people of Tumbler Ridge, we're with you today et toujours.
Today and always. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chers collègues, je vous remercie.
Colleagues, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your beautiful expressions of support and love for the community of Tumbler Ridge. Today, in this House, we are united in our shock, in our sorrow, and in our thoughts for the people of Tumbler Ridge and the families and friends of who were impacted by this tragic violence.
Speak on behalf of all Canadians. We struggle to find the right words because there are none. Nothing we say here today can change the events of yesterday. We can only hope that our words will, in some small way, lessen the burden of sorrow of those who have lost their loved ones. Leur vie ainsi que celle
Their lives and the lives of all those in Tumbler Ridge have been changed forever. As members of Parliament, we understand what community means. With our own eyes, we have seen how powerful communities can be in the face of tragedy. And today, as your words have expressed, Canada is united into one community in support of the people of Tumbler Ridge.
the bravery of the first responders who answered the call within minutes and acted with courage and compassion. We recognize the resilience of communities to come together in support and empathy. We recognize the quiet heroes who respond to their neighbors and friends with kindness, caring, and strength this day and in the long days to come. For the people of Tumbler Ridge, we in this House are united and stand with you. Together in this House, we hold you in our hearts, and we will walk with you on your long journey of grief. Enfin, j'aimerais attirer...
Finally, I would like to draw members' attention to the condolence book, which can be found just outside the doors of the House. I would invite you to take a moment to send a message to the families impacted by the tragedy in Tumbler Ridge. The Book of Condolences will remain until Tuesday, February 17th, which is also the last day when flags will be flown at half-mast. It will then be brought to the community by the member for Prince George Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Today, as we leave the chamber today, let us commit to compassion for all those affected by the tragedy, to fellowship with all those whose hearts ache, and to support the families, friends, and community that suffer in this dark moment. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. It being 2:36, pursuant to order made earlier today, this House stands adjourned until tomorrow at 10 a.m.
All right, that's gonna do it for today, ladies and gentlemen. The House of Commons is officially closed, and everything else is said and done. There will be no committees, there will be nothing until tomorrow, and that's it. I may or may not be live tomorrow based on what happens. Let me quickly check Mark Carney's itinerary. Let's see if there's anything new. No, there's nothing new as of right now. So I don't even know if he's going to be there tomorrow, but we'll see what happens anyway. Adios, everybody. Thank you for watching on YouTube, Rumble, and Kick, and have a great rest of your day or night.
Hello, I'm Andrew Thompson with you live on CPAC. As you just saw, the House of Commons has adjourned early today in the wake of yesterday's mass shooting in Tumbler Ridge, BC. The only